Dennis and Cindy Huey of Clymer. His brothers, Joshua and Jordan Huey, both at home. Maternal grandparents, Harry and Linda Brown of Clymer. And his paternal grandparents, Shirley Huey Booker, and her husband, Skip, of Gypsy, and James Huey of Hillsdale. Jeremiah is also survived by his aunts and uncles, Sally, you will call her Nene, Brown of Clymer, Harry Brown and wife Vicky in Northern Cambria, Tim Huey and wife Renee of Westover, and Samantha Huey Keith and husband Art of Arcadia, and numerous cousins. He was loved by all. Jeremiah was preceded in death by his great-grandparents and his special cousin, Austin Brown. Family and friends will be received from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Rotary Funeral Home in Hillsdale, where at 11 o'clock funeral service will be held on Monday with Pastor Philip Mack will officiate. A private family interment will be at the Rowley Cemetery in Hillsdale. In lieu of flowers, his family requests that contributions be made in honor of him. That's how I wanted to start it off. I am not just a mom. I am a mom to a child with wings. He was born, like I said, on April 7th of 92. Back in 1990, I was told I could never have children. God blessed me with 3 sons. How Jeremiah got his name? Gift from God. That's his name, Jeremiah. And I said, how appropriate, how fitting would that be for him to have that name? He loves sports. Back whenever he was about 2 years old, he would start throwing the ball. And then he started hitting the ball. Like, wow, this kid's going to be a baseball player. You know, and he just hit all of it. You know, he did the t-ball. He was a pitcher. He started out. Whenever he came into Pee Wee, he was a pitcher. His dad, I guess, was the coach at the time. And being a child of a coach, you know, you don't get like first dibs at everything. Okay, my son had to sit down on the bench the very first inning because he's like, I'm the coach, my son's going to do this. That way they can't come back on me and say, my kid never got in. Why is your kid starting? Jeremiah never started. Same with Josh and Jordan. They never started a game because their dad was the coach. They got in after the first time around, but they got in. And then Little League came. He was in Little League. Pitcher there also. Then he got into Teen League. But before all the Teen League stuff, he got into gritters, football gritters. He played. He was 8 years old. He was, like I said, he enjoyed the sports. Football, baseball, basketball, it was all him. He was no star player, but he did get in. He went to every practice, went to every game. You know, parents would say, oh, my kid, you know, never gets in a game. And I'm like, well, you know, you have it either way. I was on both sides of the fence. You know, either they play or they didn't. That was okay. He got into football. He played football in high school, or in gritters, and then he also went to high school. When he was doing the Teen League, he was actually on a team, and they were having practice down here at the Purchase Line School. And they were playing there in the field, and he was playing center. They were practicing, and another kid was playing left field. Well, the ball was coming to them, and Jeremiah's like, I got it. Well, he didn't get it. The kid came and plowed into him. Jeremiah collapsed. He had a severe concussion, bleeding on the brain. He had all that happening. So by the time we got him to the hospital, he knew everything else, but he didn't know his name. So then he went to the base. He got all cleared up for that, and then he started the baseball team at the high school. And he also did track. I'm like, track? You're gonna really run and do track? I mean, I have to go and watch you run around and just keep them. Track was like my worst sport ever because I just thought it was the boringest thing. You're gonna sit there and watch your kid just keep going wrong, keep watching, you know. But I did it. I did it for him, and that's what he wanted to do. So he's like, Mom, he says, I'm really tired. He said, I don't know if I really want to continue with this. And I said, you know, just go. You could do this, okay? Well, back whenever he was in 4th grade at the school in elementary, they say, you know, that they want to start this band, okay? Well, he wanted to play trumpet. I'm like, okay, I'm going to play trumpet. So we're hearing all this trumpet thing going on in the house, and everything. And he goes, Mom, he said, I really don't want to do this. And I said, well, you're going to have to continue. I said, in our house, you start something, you finish it. If you don't, then you just don't have to do it next year. Okay? So he would bring home these papers and stuff, and of course, I would lie, and I'd have to write it down that yes, he did practice. Okay, I did do that because I didn't want him to be kicked out. I wanted him to still continue. So then, the next year came, and he finally went to Miss Bracken, and he's like, he said, this instrument thing is just not for me. And she says, Jeremiah, I knew that from the very beginning. She said, so I just took it that you knew that you weren't supposed to quit what you were doing. So he says, he went back to her and he says, I'm just not going to do it. And she said, okay. She said, I'm glad that you waited a whole year to tell me this. And he goes, that's because my mom told me that you don't start something if you don't finish it. So at the age of 5, he was actually riding his own quad. I'm like, he's riding his own quad. I'm like screaming at my husband, like, why are you having him do all this stuff? I was like, I can't do this, And I mean, I was livid because I was the only woman in the household. I had the 3 boys and I had my husband, and I was the only girl. That was tough, let me tell you. Okay, so he was all over the place with all that, but he was also a follower. He was never a leader unless he was leading the pack of riding his quad. That's the only time that he was a leader. He attended church since birth. At the age of 5, we were at a Easter Passion play in Greensburg. He accepted Jesus into his heart at that point in time. He walked down this big, long aisle just to come and just be at the altar. He went by himself. That was the starting of, his Christian walk at the age of 5. Then he went into graduation. He graduated in 2010. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. Whenever he first started school at Purchase Line, he was the only one ever called Jeremiah. No, there was never anybody else through all these years of Jeremiah. So anytime anybody would say something about Jeremiah, and they're like, oh, I know that kid. I know that kid. He's a good kid. He has a good heart. He had a heart of gold. So we just, everybody all knew Jeremiah. Good, fun-loving kid. There was graduation, as I said, in 2010. It took all we had to get him through school. He was not a school kid at all. I would struggle with him every day. Jeremiah, got to do your homework, got to do this, got to do that. Oh, Mom, really? Do I have to? I'm like, yeah, so we do all that. So then he graduated, and then he says, I want to be a coal miner. Okay? I'm like, are you serious? Because yeah, I want to be a coal miner like my pap. It's okay. So in August of 2010, he went into the coal mines. I was scared to death because I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to be he was actually in places this low. It was terrible. But he was the youngest one there. He was 17, he was 17, and he was the youngest one there, and they called him Junior. They actually took him under their wings and went on. Well, this one time he had come home from the mines. He'd been working all day long. He'd come home, and one of his friends was having seizures, and he decided that he wanted to get him and his brother Josh wanted to go see him in the hospital. Well, on his way there, this was in, I believe it was 2011, I think is when it was, the accident. It was October 11, 2011. There was a woman walking down 286, walking down the middle of the road. I'm sure people have heard that story. And it was getting dusk at that time, and he ended up hitting that woman. He totaled his truck. The woman did not make it. That was the worst phone call I had ever gotten in my life. I was talking on the phone with my mom, and I pick up, and I answer my beep, and he's screaming with me on the phone, telling me, Mom, I just hit someone, and she's gone. I'm like, what? So I'm like franticing. I'm running outside. My husband's outside with a bobcat in the yard, and I'm screaming way over above that. And he could actually hear me, because I mean, that's how bad I was screaming. So we were the first ones arriving on the scene, and the guy that called in and said about this woman actually was calling in to say that I was seeing a woman walk on the street. As soon as he looked through her mirror, he said, never mind. He said, she just got hit. Well, in the meantime, they both turned around in different ways, and this man knew my son. And he told him, he said, buddy, he said, this is not your fault. We saw her several times during that day. And then we got word from the coroner at that time, which was Mike Baker. He said that, he saw him that day, and he said, Jeremiah, he said, I just want to tell you something. He said, I'm sorry, at the age of 19, you have to go through something like this for the rest of your life. It's a big burden you have to carry yourself. But he says it was not your fault, so you remember that. So then we found out that, she had been high on Ambien, so it was just the matter of fact that Jeremiah was just there at that time. Then in November 25th of 2012, he had an underage DUI. At that point in time, whenever they did the accident stuff, they checked him. He was not on anything, no drugs, no nothing was in his system. Then he had an underage drinking, a DUI on November 25th, 2012. He did not go through an ARD program until July of 2013. That's how long it takes for you to get help and to be able to get a sponge off your license and all that. Okay, he went through the ARD program at Open Door. There, they mixed the drugs with the alcohol to have their meetings. At that point in time, he fell in love with a girl that was a heroin addict for 8 years. I found out through the grapevine, stuff like that or whatever. But anyways, in August of 2013, his great-grandma died, and then he lost his job in the mines. He went out, and what had happened is the reason why he lost his job is because they said he did not report in the next day to say he wasn't coming. But he told them that my grandma died, so we went and we tried to fight for his job. He could not get his job back. It was done. Then on December 31st of 2013, him and this girl decided it was New Year's Eve, and at this point in time, he did not, they wanted to go to Greensburg. They were going to a hotel, and they wanted to, she more or less he didn't tell us what was happening. He said we were going to go ahead and drop off our phones, shut them off, and not to have any contact with anybody whatsoever. And I called the hotel the next morning, and I said, are they there at this hotel room? And they said, no, they left. And I'm like, okay. Well, then I still didn't hear from them that day, and then I went ahead and I waited a while, and I called back, and they had come back to the hotel. What they did is, now in the meantime, I'm telling you, we didn't know that Jeremiah was on anything. We knew she was, but we didn't know he was. So they left Greensburg to go to Indiana to find the dealer. They took it back, and they just were going to go ahead and just try to wean themselves off and just try to do it on their own, but they weren't able to. Then on January 18th of 2014, I was on my way. I was taking my youngest one and his friends to the ice skating rink to drop them off. But in the meantime, Jeremiah had moved out of the house. Like he was staying during the August to December. He was living with this girl and her mom in Indiana. So we didn't get a chance to really see him all the time. He was more or less secluding us, but we didn't really know why. But then on that day that I was taking them, Jeremiah called me that morning and asked me for $100. And I'm like, okay, buddy. I said, what do you need? And he goes, well, I'll get some cigarettes, just some this, whatever. I'm like, okay. I said, I'll meet you, and, I'll be in, I'll get you. So in the meantime, Dennis calls me and says that, these people want to talk to us. There's something they want to tell us. I'm like, okay. So I gave Jeremiah $100. He had this hood up. He was all this, he was so skinny. He had facial hair, which he never had facial hair, that much facial hair. He always had a little chin strap. He just looked really scruffy looking. He was terrible. And I gave him $100. He kissed me, hugged me, told me he loved me. That's what we always said to each other all the time. And then I proceeded to go down to the friend's house. And he said, I need to tell you something. I said, what's that? He said that, I've known this for a long time, it's been eating at me, but I need to tell you guys, Jeremiah's using heroin. I was frantic, I was angry, I was punching, I was whatever. I'm like, we don't know nothing about this. What are you talking about? Like, no, it can't be. And he said, he shared it with me, and he said, he's been calling me all day for money. And I said, well, what'd you do? And he goes, I didn't give him any. Okay, because he knew what he was going to use it for. I didn't have any idea what he was going to use it for. So he says, I think you better check his 401k. And I'm like, what? No, he can't. I'm the only one that has access to his 401k. I have all the information at home, blah, blah, blah. And I did. On Monday, that was a Saturday that we found out January 18th. I called on Monday, and they said, yes, Mrs. Huey, there was some activity going on. From December 4th to January 16th, from December 4th of 13 to January 16th of 2014, he went through $11,700. It was gone. All gone. Nothing there. I'm going to tell you something. Addiction is a family disease. One person may use, but the whole family suffers. Whole family. On December 6th of 2014, we kept telling him, after we found out, and after the girlfriend found out, that, we knew it was all over. The money was gone. She was no longer in his life at all. She was gone. She knew how to work the system. So we said, Jeremiah, you need to get some help. What do you need to do? So I started calling. February 6th, I had made the phone call to Steve Olish, he's a blessing, from Orendorff, and I said, we need to get Jeremiah into treatment. We need to do something. I knew nothing. I didn't know what to do. So he says, well, I'm going to call around. The only place that he was able to go to was in Wilkinsburg. I'm like, Wilkinsburg, that is a city. My son's not a city kid. My son is a country kid. So I got him in there, and we felt this big going into that place. And it's like, we talked to one of the nurses, and we're like, what do we do? And she said, I'm telling you, she said, we have CEO here. We have CEO kids here. We have doctors. We have preacher kids. We have parents that are millionaires that are still, they can't fix it. They cannot fix this. So that time, we had one son in college. Josh was in college, and Jordan was in high school at the time. March 2nd of 2014, and then it was just a detox. It was not a rehab. It was just detox, just to go there. He was there for 5 days. They sent you out, and off he went. Okay. Then on March 2nd, 2014, he went to his boss and said, hey, he went back into the mines. Another new mines had opened, and this owner of this mines knew that Jeremiah was a good worker. He wanted him to come and be in the mines with him. So he did. And then he loved mines. So then he went to his boss one day, and he said, boss, he said, hey Gary, he says, I need some help. He goes, what kind of help you need? You need alcohol, or what's the problem? He said, no, it's not alcohol. He says, I need some help. And he goes, okay. He said, buddy, he said, you look at the help all you need. He said, your job will still be here when you get back. Still be here. So he ended up into a rehab. It was Altoona rehab at the time. He was there for 45 days, became 11 months clean. He was clean. He was doing the Suboxone. I was giving him the Suboxone because I knew he was taking it. It was the film. We were putting it on your tongue and it melts. Then on July 12th, 2014, he wrecked his quad while racing. It was the first time, and he was clean, but he broke his ribs. We were at this race. He was there for the first time they ever raced, and there he was. We watched him as he went around the curve. His body just flew right up in the air, cleared the fence, landed, and he landed on his back. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's gone. Something's wrong. But anyways, it just happened that he was just broke the ribs. But then he was clean, like I said, for those 11 months. But during that time that you are in rehab, 45 days, Those people there, Jeremiah was never court committed. Jeremiah was there to get help. People that were in there were court committed, they had to be there. What they do is those people will also teach you how to even shoot up the Suboxone, shoot up the pills, snort them. Whatever you wanted to do, they will teach you how to do that. Okay? And like I said, he was taking Suboxone, he was clean. And on February 7th, 2015, he totaled his dad's car. And he broke his back, T11 and T14. They checked him out. He was like in and out of consciousness and stuff, and they checked him out, and he had no substance in his system whatsoever. He was actually going to meet his dad down in Hillsdale because he had to switch out vehicles. And Dennis actually heard the siren going off from Hillsdale to Commodore. He heard it, and he's like, there's something wrong. Why is Jeremiah not here? So, meanwhile, since he broke his back, they put him through surgery. I said to them, you can't put him on anything. He's an addict. You cannot do this. Oh, Mrs. Huey, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. So we put him on pain meds. Right then and there, it went put right back into the drugs. Then, all right. And while he was at rehab also, we would go see him every Sunday. We would see people sneaking things in, such as pills and etc. See, a lot of these people are, like I said, are just court committed. But Jeremiah never was. Jeremiah would say, yes, I want to go get help. I need to do this. I need to change my life around. Okay? We would write him letters and send cards, and he would write to us, and that he would say that he would never be normal again. He'll never be normal. That's where heroin messes with your brain. You know, you want to stop, but yet you don't. Like getting back to whenever we first found out about Jeremiah, you know, I was like, no, he can't be doing heroin. And I asked him one day, and I said, Jeremiah, I said, why are you doing it? He goes, well, I snorted it once. He said, I just want to see what she felt like. And he said, I snorted it once. He said, I didn't get any feeling. Okay, so he snorted it again. Didn't get anything. So finally he said, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use that needle. I'm like, why would you use a needle? You're scared to death of needles. I take you in for you get your shots, and you scream and cry because you don't want to get shot. You don't lick needles. He says, Mom, he said, it's different. He said, it's just totally different. You don't know the feeling that goes into your body when that drug is reaching your system. So I was like, okay. But, you know, there still is hope. There's still hope for the ones that are still out there struggling and trying to get help. There still is hope. We would see him, you know, for every 2 hours. We would go and see him on Sundays for 2 hours. And then he had his accident on February 7th, like I said. Then I ended up in an accident on April 13, 2015. I was in and out of consciousness. They thought I would never make it through that accident. I was broke down on Apple Orchard Hill. And I was I was in ICU for 3 days. I was in trauma for 4. And after that, I ended up going to a nursing home for me to get help for walking. I had a severe concussion. I went through a 1-year study of concussion studies, and to this day, I'm okay from that accident. Things to look out for that you see on someone that is using. You look for the pinhole pupils, and always nodding. They're always nodding. They're sleepy. And then in July of 2015, Jeremiah's truck was broke down. He didn't have an engine for his truck. So he had asked me to use my Jeep. And I was like, okay, but I said, I need to have it back here because I have other things I have to do. Well, 5 o'clock came, he's not coming. 6 o'clock came, not coming. Finally, I called, and here he wasn't the one to answer the phone. This new girlfriend answers the phone. I said, why are you answering Jeremiah's phone? He said, because I don't know why he's not here. Well, then she saw an ambulance coming, and here he was laying in the parking lot at Walmart because he had used in the bathroom there. He did not go for help at that time, but he ended up going to the hospital And then he stayed there for a few days, and everything was okay. Well then, September 12th of 2015, he had his first overdose. He was found on Burns Road. The guy that he was with actually called 911 to say that he was a passerby and saw him laying in a ditch. It was dark. It was like 10:30 at night. The cherry tree cops came, and they said that, we got to find this person. They tried 3 times, but didn't find him. The next time, he said, one cherry tree cop says, we got to try one more time. We got to find this person. So he went ahead and found him, and he was laying face down in the ditch. He was actually in a bee hole. So they took his wallet out, saw the name, Jeremiah Huey. They said, it can't be him. No, this just cannot be him. They turned him over, and the ambulance was there also. Brought him back. And that was the first time that he had actually used the Narcan. They went ahead and they took him into the hospital, but in the meantime, the state policeman came to our house and said, are you Jeremiah Huey's parents? And we said, yes. And they said, you need to get to the hospital right away. They found him laying in a ditch, and he's fighting for his life right now. So we went and we saw him in the hospital. His face was all out like this, and plus he was all actually beat up too, because the person was trying to get him so he could come awake. He ended up coming home then. He did not go back into rehab because at that time he was working on the drilling rigs. He put the mines, actually the mines was closing down, so he went and he was on the drilling rigs then. But here's all this, gloom and doom stuff, the brain stuff, but he was a very good kid. He always said he loves you, kisses you. He did all of that. He was just an excellent, phenomenal kid, a heart of gold. Another thing too, he never stole from us, never. He had all his other things that he could sell of his own, like he sold his TV. That's one thing he did not sell. He did not sell his TV. But he had an Xbox, he sold it, just to be able to get his heroin, be able to, still be able to do what he was doing before. Because granted, whenever he started out, he started doing 20 to 30 bags a day. When he started out, because he wanted to do what that person was doing. It didn't work that way for him. On December 8th, that was his second overdose. Dennis found him in the bathroom at home. He was very shallow breathing, gurgling noises, and Dennis called for the ambulance. They gave Narcan. And they Narcaned him again on the way to the hospital. And they Narcaned him all night long in ICU. I was shopping at the time with my mom in Indiana, and I get the phone call from Dennis, you need to get home right away. That was the fastest ride that I drove, from Indiana to my house, to drop off my mom first, and then go to my house to get Dennis, and we went into the hospital. He had a visit with Steve Polish then the next day, and he asked him, do you want to go to rehab? And Jeremiah's like, yeah, I want to go to rehab. I need to get some help. I want to, be able to change my life around. I have a baby on the way, and I need to change. Well then, on January 12th, he gets out of rehab. He was there for 33 days. Him and a few guys decided that they wanted to put a surveillance camera in their room so he could chew snuff, and also to find some maybe video games or something online that they could look at. He was kicked out. They kept 4 guys. 2 guys got kicked out. The one that was supposed to be watching him was actually, one of the counselors was actually in another room, watching the basketball playoffs or something, and was not paying attention to what was going on. There was no structure there, there was nothing there. So he gets out of rehab on January 12th. Dennis gets a phone call that, hey, Jeremiah, at that time, they did not tell Jeremiah that he was leaving the place. Dennis gets over there again. He begged and pleaded, please let me stay. I know something's going to happen to me. I know I need to be here. I need to get some more help. He said, no, I'm sorry, Jeremiah, but you need to leave. So he left. He got home. It was in the evening. I had to wait till Dennis got home from work to go get him. And he came home, and we talked for a little bit and everything. And then we said our goodnights. But I want to back up a few. I'm skipping through this stuff. But I just wanted to say before all of this that he never slept in his bedroom after rehab. When he first went to rehab and he was clean for those 11 months, he never slept back in his bedroom. You know why? Because the demons were in there, and he kept seeing this woman opening up his drawers to encourage him to use. He slept on the couch. He never slept in his bed, ever. But he always still had a smile on his face. So the next day, on January 13, 2016, I had my accident. I was on my way I was a caretaker. I was on my way going to church to take care of my patient. And it was really bad that day. The school had 2-hour delay. And I told Jeremiah, that I'll be back later, I'll see you, and we'll tell her, we'll do our little conversations or whatever. We'll catch up later. Well, I wrecked between 2 schools. I hit the pole. They life-flighted me to Presby Hospital. That was 9 months from the last accident I had in 2015 to the day. I had broken pelvis in 2 places. I broke my tailbone. They life-flighted me there. And then the next day, on January 14th of 2016, I get a phone call. And it's like, she asked me, how are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm doing fine. I'm going to take medicine, I'm going to get better. And they said, no, I mean about Jeremiah. I said, what do you mean about Jeremiah? And they said, he died. I said, what do you mean he died? Here it got on Facebook before I even knew it. I was his mother. It was horrible. Horrible. So I called the house. And my mother-in-law answers the phone. I'm like, why are you at my house? And she said, I'm just visiting. I said, no. I said, something happened to Jeremiah. She says, here, talk to Josh. So I talked to Josh. I said, what's going on? And he goes, Mommy, he said, I'm so sorry. He said, I tried to save him. He says, but I couldn't. But to back up from my accident, on that night, Dennis brought the boys. They were there with me. And the last thing I said to Jeremiah that day was, please don't do anything stupid. Mommy's going to get better. You have your whole life ahead of you. I said, please don't do anything. I promise, Mom, I won't. He gave me a kiss on my lips. Told me he loved me, and that was the last that I heard from him. Ever. So he's my forever 23. They always say, I'm like, what's that mean? Well, he's just forever going to be 23 years old. But he's in safe in the arms of Jesus right now. I always said to him, I said, Jeremiah, I was going to tell you something. I said, you may have left God. I said, but God never left you. I said, so you remember that. And on the day that we found out, January 18, 2014, 2 years later, on January 18th of 2016, we are burying our son in the ground. 2 years. But we lived through, you know what, for 3 years. 3 years. Anybody that's ever gone through this knows what I'm talking about. It's a struggle every day. Every day you have a struggle. You always wonder when you're going to get that phone call. When you're going to get that phone call. Well, I don't have those phone calls anymore. But I can sleep better at night knowing where my son is. I can sleep at night knowing. The day of the funeral, we were up at Burley Cemetery, and it's always real windy that day. But anyways, it was a nice, calm day, and Pastor Mac was reading from one of the scriptures, and all of a sudden it said, wind. As soon as he said the word wind, it was like, phew. Leaves started flying a little bit, and I saw Jeremiah just go. I knew where he's at today. I know that's where he's at, and he's watching over us every single day. But and then meanwhile, I was still in Dennis, went ahead and got health ride and stuff. Well, my brother-in-law was driving at the time, and he got health ride to come to whenever I was at Presby Hospital, I had to get sent to St. Andrew's Nursing Home in Indiana, and that's where I had to go for the rest of my treatments to be helpful. I was there for 6 weeks. I could not walk. They came and picked me up, and I went to the viewing, and also was there for the funeral. But I was not walking. I was in a wheelchair. But in the meantime, while I was at the home, we had a grandson that was born. Tanner was born on February 13th, 2016. All Jeremiah ever wanted to do was be a daddy. That's all he wanted. But I do have a text message from him back in 2015 of October 25th, I believe. And it says that, Mom, as soon as my baby is born, I'm going to turn my rights all over to you, and I want you to raise my baby. He knew he was too sick to do that. Well, his wish has come true. On May 3rd, 2016, at the time Tanner was 2.5 months old, we went and I went and filed for emergency custody. We now have Tanner. Tanner's been with us ever since, and the mom's rights were taken away on February 12th of this year, and we will be adopting Tanner. So Tanner is ours, but only we're starting out again, just like Debbie was saying. We're starting out. I already raised my 3 boys. My youngest one's 20 years old. We're starting out again, but I have to do it because this is what we have to do. My grandson needs to have a life. My grandson needs to be able to know his daddy. He does know his daddy. We go up to the cemetery and he goes, I gotta go find daddy. I gotta go find him. We have pictures. We have Tanner up here. Tanner's pictures up here with his dad. But he's gonna know his daddy. He knows him already. And whenever he sees me crying at home, that's the best thing that Tanner could ever do, is come up to me and give me a hug and kiss and tell me he loves me. And that's what we're trying to install in his head, that, there's still things that needs to be done with him, and we have him in church, and we have him just doing everything that he needs to do. And he's being a kid, and he loves it. But in my ending here, I just want to let everybody know that I live every day without one of my children. It's a mom angel thing. Be glad that you don't understand it. Because it's a tough and it's a rough road to be on. He was, like I said, he was a normal child. He loved coon hunting, he loved racing, he loved ripping and tearing up the quad, he loved swimming, he loved fishing. And he never drank water. Then I would be finding water in his bags. I'm like, why do you have water? You drank Mountain Dew and you drank, Gatorade and stuff. But then that's what they used. And if anybody's, I was like a really good detective. Let me tell you, when I first found out about him doing this, I was a detective. I went searching, and I kept finding, my spoons kept missing. My spoons were missing out of my drawer. And here, I went into his truck one day and I found there was spoons, there was his little hair. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a heroin bag. What it is, it's a stamp. It's like maybe the size of a salt and pepper packet, maybe a little bit bigger, but there's just like the powder stuff that's in it. He would have those in there, and they would be in a glasses case. That's where they would hide it, along with his needle. But like I said, he just, addiction does not discriminate. Does not discriminate. It kills all. It stills the addict's heart and soul. Redemption is possible. Recovery does not discriminate either. Nobody is too far gone. Nobody is without hope. You can still have hope. if you're an addict out there, or if you know someone that is an addict, just keep praying for that person. There is hope. My son didn't get it here on earth, but he got it in heaven. His hope is there. And he watches over me. Like I said, every day I have a little angel on me. And he had started out with a Pandora bracelet for me with the things. But on the last Mother's Day that he was alive, he got me an angel and a cross. I didn't know what was happening then. He didn't know either. But I do have a poem that I want to end with. I just wanted everybody to know that he was a phenomenal kid. He would do anything for you. He would take the shirt off his back to help you in any way possible. And people that know him here today can agree with me. He was a fun-loving kid. Whenever he was first in rehab, he got a poem, and it reads, Heroin. I am heroin. I destroy homes, tear families apart, take your children, and that's just the start. I'm more costly than diamonds, more costly than gold. Sorrow I bring is a sight to behold. And if you need me, I'm so easily found. I live all around you and hang around town. I live with the rich, I live with the poor. I live down the street and might be next door. My power is awesome. Test me, you'll see. But if you do, you may never break free. Just try me once, and I might let you go. But try me twice, and I'll own your soul. When I possess you, you'll steal and you'll lie. You'll do what you have just to get high. The crimes you'll commit for my narcotic name, to you it's worth the pleasure of me in your veins. You'll lie to your mother, you'll steal from your dad. When you see their tears, you should feel sad. But you'll forget your morals and how you were raised. I'll take over your conscience and shorten your days. I take kids from parents and parents from kids. I turn people for God and separate friends. I'll take everything from you, from your looks to your pride. I'll be with you always, right by your side. I'll give up everything, your family, your home, your friends, your money. You'll be mine and mine alone. I'll take and take till you have nothing more to give. When I'm finished with you, you'll be lucky to live. If you try me, be warned, this is no game. If given the chance, I'll drive you insane. I'll ravish your body, I'll control your mind. I'll own you completely, your soul will be mine. The nightmares I'll give you while lying in bed, the voices you'll hear from inside your head. The sweats, the shakes, the visions you'll see, I want you to know these are all part of the poison of me. I'll strip you of faith and be your only love. You lose all hope. I'll be all you think of. You'll regret that you tried me. They always do. But you came to me, not I to you. You knew this would happen many times you were told, but you challenged my power and chose to be bold. You could have said no and just walked away. If you could live that day over, now what would you say? I'll be your master, you will be my slave. I'll even go with you when you go to your grave. Now that you have met me, what will you do? Will you try me or not? It's all up to you. But I just wanted to make sure that people did know that Jeremiah was very loved by us, and he loved us. He did not do this because he wanted to hurt himself. He did this because he couldn't stop. And I'm just hoping today that by people hearing me, that I hope that I at least touched one person, or touched maybe, the hands that needed to be touched today. And that God gives me the strength every day. If I did not have Christ in my life, I don't know where I would be without him. Things could be possible. And all that I say is for the churches, I want to thank my church family. I have some here that they've been with me from day one. It's just, like I said, it's just been a struggle. Never thought in a million years, don't ever say it never happened to your kid, because they'll come back and bite you. Because I always thought, that I would just have to do what I have to do. But I'm here for a reason. I had these 2 accidents. I'm here for a reason. And that reason is I have to take care of my grades. And he looks and acts just like his daddy. So, so we're just waiting for these challenges. But I want to thank you so much. And how the churches can help you also is just to be open for them, be able to, share what you have. And his favorite verse, don't want to leave here without saying the favorite verse. His favorite verse was Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, who strengthens me. Just know you are never alone. You're never too lost to be saved. So you just remember that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you all. I hope that what you're hearing today is, if anything, a little bit motivating, for the lack of a better word, especially those of you with a church affiliation or association. So it's a lot more. We're only about halfway done. So it's about 23 after 12. What we're going to do, we're going to have lunch. It's downstairs. We have some homemade soup and some refreshments and some snacks for you. It is free of charge. We are taking a free will offering. That offering will go 100% to our fund to send a couple of our kiddos, hopefully, to summer camp this coming summer. So it does not go in our pockets. It goes towards assisting kids, the summertime ministry. So we appreciate you coming. Again, we are here. If anybody would like to speak with any of us, I know Jim and Jackie Green would be willing to, myself, Sheriff Fio, anybody. So if we can, let's take a moment, let's stand, and we'll say grace here, and we'll change. Father God, again, we thank you for this day, that we can be here, that we can do this, that we can worship and honor you. And Father, I ask that through these stories and what we will hear continuously throughout today, that something would come from today to continue to move the church from a spectator to a part of your hand of healing as we leave this place. Whatever that may be, we don't know, Father, but we are attentive to the moving of your Spirit in and through and among us. We ask that this happen. Father, continue to be with those who continue to suffer. Those with us today, those not with us. The hands that are prepared the meal for us may continue to strengthen and nourish us, that we may continue to serve you. We ask this in your precious name. The body said. Amen. Just 1 second. Let me get this out here. I'm going to cut you off. Okay, it's 25 after 12. We will meet back here, and we will be starting promptly at 10 after 1.
Okay. I do have a copy of the heroin poem. If anybody would like a copy of it, I make copies.
Okay. Thank you, folks. We'll see you back upstairs here at 10 after 1. Ask you folks to make your way upstairs from the basement if you can, please. Is anybody else down there? While you folks are doing that, like we said this morning, it's kind of impromptu, but blessings of some of our guests, we are live. Who knew? Yeah, who knew? Who knew? It's really kind of scary. I'm going to be honest with you. Well, I'm sorry about your luck, baby. It's just how it is. But our next guest, dear friend Pastor Jackie Green, has as a saying, and she calls it a God thing. And that's exactly what today is about, and the fact that we're able to do this and bring this to you is definitely that. All right, real quick, before we get started, if you have your bulletins that you were given when you arrived this morning, you'll see an insert there, a little bit about the Montgomery Church, brethren, and what we're offering in 2019. And I'll just share that with you here for just a few seconds. Some things that we currently do here the second Saturday of every month, the second Saturday of every month here at the church. If you have children, if you are raising children, if you are raising somebody else's children, and you simply need a break, the second Saturday of every month, for about a year now, we've ran what we call Kids Camp. And from 10 to 3, children are welcome to come, and they have crafts, they have recreation, they receive a hot meal, and they just get to spend the day here with us. And we've got a pretty good little crowd that comes pretty regular, but if you have children or know people with children that would love to come and be a part of that, it is free of charge. There's no registration required ahead of time, and we invite you to bring the kiddos and be a part of that. Starting this Tuesday, which I believe is January the 8th, this Tuesday evening at 6:30, we're launching a new outreach called the Alpha Group. And what the Alpha Group is a time for folks who have always wanted to ask the difficult questions of faith, like, is God real? Did Jesus really exist? Did he really do all those things? Is what the Bible tells us, is that true? Did those things really happen? And sometimes churches can be a difficult place to ask those questions and not be afraid to maybe be looked down upon or thought that, how could you ask those questions, So the point behind it is an 11-week study is obviously to gear and steer folks towards understanding that, our God is very real, and his word is very real, and his word is very true. But it's a chance to come and just sit with like-minded people that maybe really, truly, honestly struggle with some of those questions, but just didn't feel comfortable asking that. So we'll open that up to the community here at Montgomery Church, and that's starting this Tuesday evening. Also looking ahead, hopefully in spring or probably this summer here of 2019, you're going to hear a little bit about this from Pastor Jackie Green, but we're hoping to launch Celebrate Recovery here at Montgomery Church, which is a rock-solid, Christ-centered, biblically based program for anybody that's struggling, not only with addiction, but with what they call hurts, habits, and hang-ups, just the stuff of life that, quite honestly, gets in the way and makes life difficult. In a setting where you can be with like-minded people and share openly with that. And also, if you do not already have, and you're watching, you do not already have a church family to be a part of, we welcome you here. We meet every Sunday morning. Sunday school is at 9:30. Worship is at 10:45. We also have regular Bible studies twice a week on Wednesday morning at 10:30 and again at 6:30 on Wednesday evening. So I invite you to be a part of that. So thank you for sticking with us today. I'd like to introduce a very good friend, a very dear sister in the Lord, Pastor Jackie Green.
Well, thanks, Pastor Dale. I appreciate the time and the opportunity. And as you were sharing about your kids program, I have to tell you what the thought went through my mind. So am I allowed to drop my husband off, who actually has not ever grown up? He's still just a big kid. I was thinking, hey, that'd be the perfect place for him. Give me a day out, leave my husband here. Sounds like a good deal. So, okay. Hey, I am Pastor Jackie Green of the GAP Ministry, which stands for God Answers Prayer. And my husband and I, Jim, have based this ministry on Ezekiel 22:30. And it is where, God is asking who will stand in the gap. And for whatever reason, when you say yes to God and you're obedient, He has allowed us to stand in the gap in a variety of ways for quite a few years. So I'll tell you about that as I go along today. But what a wonderful day this has been. I am thankful to Pastor Dale and to this church, the Montgomery Church of the Brethren, for having the vision and the heart to invite us all in to have these conversations. And a big thank you to the moms that shared. I couldn't sit there through either one of your stories without tears in my eyes and my heart just breaking, knowing that you just represent so many families and people that are dealing with this. So thank you for the courage to share. It's very hard to be open and open your lives up in that way. So that is very, very important. But to be here as a community is so very powerful. God created us to live in community and to walk this journey here on this life together in community. Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. And that's what we do when we come together as a community. We have heard some serious burdens today, no doubt. We have been weekly, if not daily, hearing of these serious burdens in our communities for years now regarding the opioid crisis. But it hasn't started with that crisis. It's just the level that Satan has taken it to, the battle that Satan has brought before us. And if you weren't aware before of spiritual warfare, I'm sure that you are now, understanding that we are in a spiritual battle. We are in a war. It is a battle for our soul, but Satan wars for our very being, our minds, our bodies, emotions, are being attacked regularly. Therefore, we need to prepare for this battle, which means we have to arm ourselves and we have to have a plan. So Satan really is just a big bully. That's all he is. And in knowing Jesus Christ personally, if you are a Christian and you are a follower of Jesus, we have all the power to overcome. Satan has already been defeated. So why are we letting him wreak havoc in our lives and in this world? We see in Mark 16:17-18, and these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. It's possible. They shall recover. Recovery is possible, but the better news is that we can have victory before we even get to these terrible places where we have these addictions that we all, any one of us, can fall prey to. God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind, in 2 Timothy 1:7. What I have come to learn in the years that we have been running the Celebrate Recovery program, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is that the addictions that we encounter, and they can be more than just to drugs and alcohol. We can be addicted to anything that takes control of our life and definitely separates us from Christ, the person that he has us to be in this world, is an addiction. We can be addicted to pornography, to sex, to overeating, to overspending. There are plenty of things that can overcome us and take over our lives. But these addictions are just a byproduct of a deeper root or core issues. When those things are left unidentified and untended to, that's where we get into problems. That's when we start turning to things to put on a mask, to cover up the things that we are not dealing with, the untended to things. We are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Romans 8:37. So I say, let's celebrate that together. We are conquerors, and we can do this. There is hope. God did not leave us in a life without hope. As children of God, we must understand that our Heavenly Father, he is good. He is good. And his chief goal in our lives is to make us the best people that we can be. He created us. He is our Father. He wants us to be the best, just like we want the best for our children. Everything he does, he deals with us in our Christian lives is to develop the potential to the greatest degree possible. But then on the other hand, as I said about spiritual warfare, Satan is totally evil. Jesus gave us Satan's job description in John 10:10, and that says, "The thief, who is Satan, cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy." But it's the rest of that verse that I absolutely love. It's become like my mantra. This is the thing that God called me to preach, to share in the good news of Jesus Christ. I've been called later in life to be a pastor. This isn't my first job. And actually, it's amazing why we don't live by this. The second part of John 10:10 tells us, "I," being Jesus, that is, "have come that they might have life, and they might have it more abundantly," or to the fullest, some of the versions say. So why don't we walk in that victory? That just blows my mind. So I have a couple things that I noted that as a community of believers coming together, which is Dale's heart, why he brought us together today, is how as a community of believers in churches can we come together and help in these community issues. First, we have to acknowledge the issue. So whether we acknowledge it or not, it exists. It's happening all around us. This is a huge place that we need to overcome, that we're just not acknowledging it. Satan wants to keep blinders on us. For so long, we think it couldn't happen to us. It's only those people. But as we heard today, God-fearing people, every person can deal with this and has dealt with it personally or as a family. We have found that there are no those people. We are all those people. We all can fall prey. We were born as sinners in need of recovery and reconciliation to God. I don't know why we miss that in life. Like when I go and talk to many, many churches, and I've had the opportunity to over the last 5 years while we've been running this recovery program, it's just so interesting that we, sitting in the pews, think that we don't need any recovery, that we don't need any help. So the second thing that we need to do is prayer. And obviously that's what we believe in, my husband and I, Jim. With our ministry, God Answers Prayer, it really is all about prayer. James 5:16 tells us, "Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed." The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. So as a Christian and a follower of Jesus, we are righteous in and through him. We are the righteous people. It's our prayers that needs to happen to make a difference. Our continued prayers are needed, so don't get weary in the battle. And it is a battle, and we can get weary. Keep praying specifically, very specific things. So I'll share a little bit from a sermon that I speak when I go to churches and I'm asked to share about Celebrate Recovery. And I've entitled it, Hope, Healing, Happiness, How? And I start out by asking the folks, do you believe in prayer? Well, I'm speaking in a church, right? So everybody, shakes their head, I believe in prayer. But then I push them a little bit and I say, well, of course you say you believe in prayer because you're sitting here in church and you're acknowledging you're a Christian. But I ask again, do you really believe in prayer? Have you experienced it? Prayer, that is. So as I ask them, I will ask you, what went through your mind when I ask you if you believe in prayer? Did you have a little twinge maybe in your spirit? Or did your spirit sail when you started thinking about what you really believe in prayer? Prayer truly is the conduit for everything that God has for us on this earth. It's a tool that we have that is so powerful that I think we take for granted. And when we pray, God answers every time. He may not answer in the way we think, the way we hope, but I guarantee you that God answers every time. I just think of a little, example. as you know, you work on a car. I don't know much about cars, but I know a little bit about cars. You know, and I think of a car and all the different moving parts in a car, and I think of us as a community of believers and all the moving parts. But in a car, there's all the multiple different things that it takes, right? Spark plugs, wires, you know, a gasoline engine, whatever it takes to run a car. But what I know of a car is the core part of a car is the engine. And to me, that's what our prayer life is the core part of a Christian's life is prayer. And we have to acknowledge that in our life. And the core belief in Jesus and that connection through prayer. Then we can start moving forward, just like that car would start moving forward when you put it all in motion and you have the core concept in place. So again, if you don't have that, you're just going in circles. So how do we know the hope and the healing and the happiness? We are all broken and in need of healing from day one. So we all need some form of recovery. So my third point is to educate ourselves as a community, as churches. You know, as I talked to a couple of you even today, you know, just we're learning. You know, I was very impressed with the level of things that Debbie noted, you know, that she, in her hurt and all the things she was dealing with, she investigated and she found out and she, you know, did things. And then just for you folks to come and share like you did your experiences, that's educating us. For us to, you know, come and listen and say, hey, there's something here in our community that I need to know about. There's something happening. So education is so important. And as an individual and a community, we must get educated to the realities and then come together as this community of believers in Jesus Christ and seek Him. Of course, turning to the Bible and to prayer is imperative in our education because that is where we learn how to walk this Christian life. That is where we learn how to walk the way the Lord would have us. So just what we are doing today, I absolutely love the opportunities to cross denominational lines as well as socioeconomic and every other line that we have drawn as humans. To come together to really say, what can we do? What can I do? Because we are all in this together. It does affect everybody. So we have so many different sized communities, you know, within where we live here in this county. We have so many different local churches, you know, and that is another way how the Lord has chosen to work in our area is through the local community. You know, He wants us to come together as believers, to not only just be built up in ourselves and to learn, but then to go out and do. We are Jesus's hands and feet, and that's what we have to do, is come together. We just think about the power if we truly became unified. You know, dropping all the lines that we draw as human beings and just come together unified to say we are going to win this battle. So, of course, there are tons of statistics that you can Google and find on the internet about the state of our country and communities regarding drug and alcohol addictions. I figured that I won't bore you with all of those. I've gone to plenty of talks where people just stand and cite and read statistics. I think we're far enough into this crisis that we kind of hear it daily on the news and we live it with our neighbors and our families and our friends. And you can Google that yourself and look up all of those statistics. But however, I will share that there are many positive stats how the faith-based recovery programs have a higher success rate than secular ones. I've heard that it can be as high as 80% more successful when it's a faith-based recovery program. So here is one little excerpt from an article from the World Religion News. The article is entitled Faith in Recovery. It's from October 2017. It says, in their series, Faith in Recovery, World Religion News has investigated the dangers of substance addiction and the methods used to help those afflicted. We have seen that religious organizations, while sometimes slow at acknowledging the problem, have unique advantages, as well as some unique disadvantages. What can be universally agreed upon as troubling is the cost of the addiction in America in billions of dollars and lives. We also can agree there is a lack of service, which we have heard and seen. Many who want to get help are unable to do so, and those who do, can receive inadequate treatment, actually. So from their findings, 40 to 60% of people addicted relapse within 6 months, whereas one addressing the spiritual component within their recovery, they have a higher chance of making it to that 1-year mark of sobriety, which is a really important mark in the world of recovery. You know, they cite morals and community and optimism is what they do cite in this article as positives within a faith-based recovery program. But we know the real power, and it is the belief in Jesus and turning our lives over to Him. No hands, down. That is the deal. So whilst 12-step programs can be successful somewhat, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, I do have to state that the very different thing between those 12-step programs and the Celebrate Recovery program that I'm going to share with you, and we've been running for 5 years, is that Jesus Christ is your higher power. In those programs, I am told over and over, I've not attended any, but from participants that go to those programs and as well come to ours, I have been told, that they can choose whatever higher power that they want to identify. And it just saddens my heart when I hear that, because there's no power in whatever they're choosing, and they're not going to have the success. So that is the absolute difference. And we don't force anything on folks, but we tell them the truth, and we show them the way. And that's all we can do. So from another article that I read, and this was a program I've never heard about, it's called Are You Recovery? Program article. It said, how does faith-based addiction recovery work? Does faith-based programs really work? And the short answer is to the question, yes, faith-based addiction recovery programs work, and with great success. The long answer is found when answering the question, how do they work and why do they work so well? The director says he has been the international director for this particular recovery program for 16 years, and he has witnessed the miracle of changed lives over and over again. It never gets old to see God transform someone's life from being a hopelessly addicted drug user to a recovered and restored vessel for God. Recovery is possible and hope is available through Jesus Christ. Fear and addiction typically go hand in hand, and people live with that fear that there is no hope for them to beat the addiction. With a faith-based recovery program, there is hope. This is one of the main ingredients that makes a difference in a faith-based approach. There is hope, and recovery is available. This is why in the RU program that this gentleman is the director of, they don't sit around and tell their war stories of addiction, which I understand happens in a lot of the different 12-step programs. But in the first hour of their program, their new students are bombarded with testimonies of victory and recovery over addiction. And in our Celebrate Recovery program, every other week we have a testimony. And that is powerful, to truly see a changed life and to hear it from the actual person. Another key ingredient to the success of faith-based programs is the support of the local church. That's what they cite in this article. Faith-based addiction programs can serve as a bridge between the local community and God's support group, the local church. And just like we heard today, the importance that needs to happen, that we need to get our heads out of the sand and start dealing with these things, and start just loving on the people that's in our own congregations that are dealing with this, let alone the people out in the community that don't even walk through a church door. Many people who fall into addiction have burned bridges with their families and loved ones and don't have a support group which they can depend on. So also, a key to the faith-based programs is the infrastructure to lovingly hold these individuals accountable. Very important. With faith-based programs, you have individual volunteers and staff that genuinely care about people and will go out of their way to hold them accountable while showing them real love. Since most faith-based programs do not receive insurance money to pay for treatment, they are very inexpensive and run at a minimum cost. Money is certainly not a motivation for the staff and volunteers of these programs. Their main incentive is to help the people in need. The secret sauce and main ingredient to the success of this particular program, this director cites, and many other faith-based programs is teaching our students to have personal, dynamic relationship with Jesus Christ. Faith-based recovery programs help people realize that they are not alone in addiction, and if they place their trust in Jesus Christ and depend on Him and Him alone, they can beat whatever addiction it is that they have bondage to. So the faith-based addiction recovery is supported by its many success stories. You cannot argue with a changed life. It is what it is, right? And in faith-based addiction recovery, we are seeing lives changed every day. And we have seen this at Celebrate Recovery. It's amazing. Here in their ministry, you will not be shunned, the same as ours. You're not disgraced. There is no shame. You will be supported, you will be cared about, and you will be encouraged, and you will be heard. That is one of the main things that people need, is to be heard. They're hurting. We're hurting. We just need good listeners, somebody to say, I'll pray with you, to walk that journey, to just do simple things. You know, give them a ride somewhere. Take an extra few minutes, whatever it may be that they need. Placing all of your trust in Jesus Christ may be new to you, and it might be a difficult idea to understand, especially if you've never seen it work. But if you can see the miracle in someone else, maybe it will bring hope and encouragement that can make freedom truly possible. So the fourth thing that I've cited today is have a heart and care for each other. You know, we are so busy in our life, you know, and God really cautioned me about that a while ago. You know, when we encounter people on the street, whatever, in the store, and, oh, hey, how are you? The first thing out of my mouth, and many of us say, I'm busy. I'm busy. God says, why are you so busy? That's what He said to me. Like, I haven't asked you to live this breakneck speed life and be so busy that you don't have time to stop and be with me and to see others through Jesus' eyes. And how can we help in that way? So Jesus cared for others all along His journey in life. If you just read through the Gospels and read the story of Jesus, what did He do? He didn't say, hey, I'm too busy, get on my calendar, which I say that to people all the time. It's terrible. You know, like, oh, yeah, I really have a heart, I want to help you, but like I might have an opening 2 weeks from now and catch me then. You know, that don't sound right, does it? Jesus stopped in His everyday life. He left interruptions. He left margin. And He let go of the things that really didn't matter in life to stop and help those that He was encountering along the way. So for you to really enter into this, you also will have to be willing to have your routines and your comfortable lives interrupted and to get messy, because it's messy. Being Jesus' hands and feet is not going to be a walk in the park. I'm telling you. You know, living a life like Jesus did is messy if you haven't already figured that out. You know, we have, my husband and I and our good friends are here, been leaders with us in Celebrate Recovery, you know, for the last 5 years. We launched 4 years ago. It took actually a year to prepare to launch this particular ministry because it's very time intensive. And you talk about interrupting your life. And I'm not saying this to make us sound great. It's because God put this burden on our heart and we can't get away from it because we want to help people, and when you see people being helped, it makes a difference. But Celebrate Recovery meets every week of the year, and it doesn't matter whether it's a holiday, it doesn't matter if you have a family crisis, it doesn't matter. You have to be there for these people. And for ourselves, you never believe the healing that has happened in ourselves just from participating in this. I mean, we just came through the holidays. We meet on Monday nights, so we were there on Christmas Eve, and we were there on New Year's Eve. I've been there on Christmas Day, I've been there on New Year's Day, on Memorial Day. It doesn't matter. I have 2 daughters, and we now have a grandson, and we have a granddaughter on the way in a few months. So, and they see our passion, and we adjust our lives so that we can be there and do what God has asked us to do. 2 Corinthians 1:3-4, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. That's what it's all about. We receive and therefore we give. We freely give. It's amazing. So the 5th point I would like to make is we have to come together. There has to be unity in the body of Christ. And I understand this concept. You know, we can have all these, you know, well, we're this denomination and they believe this and they do that. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? I don't think it matters to those that needs us, does it? Again, what we are doing today by coming together is very powerful, but we can't just let it stop here. We just can't show up on a Saturday to hear a few people talk and think, well, I did my part. So how can we keep coming together to help in this very devastating situation and crisis that we find ourselves in? Well, for my husband Jim and I, God has led us to start this Celebrate Recovery program in Indiana. We prayed and asked God what was an unmet need in this area. And as we kept seeking the Lord, he kept putting this particular ministry before us, Celebrate Recovery. And so as we started checking into it, and I had heard about it as I was taking my ministry classes, but didn't have a lot of details, and there is a little one that meets in Homer City in the United Methodist Church there. They meet on Thursday nights. So we went and visited those folks. We found out more about the program, and to be very honest, I was like, wow, this is going to be intense. This is going to be a lot of work. This is going to be really hard, God. Do you have something else we could do? I mean, I didn't think that we could do this. I just thought, wow. And again, you know, you can do all things through Christ. So we're like, we're going for it. We're going to give it a shot. Like, right, what do we have to lose? And we had, you know, a variety of people doing some Bible study with us, and we posed to them like, we don't think we're going to lead Bible studies anymore. My husband and I feel led to start preparing to do this ministry, and we invited these folks to become a part of it with us. And you know, my husband said, you're crazy, they're going to all run, like who would agree to sign up for something this hard? And all I can say is God's Spirit had to move on those people because they have come alongside us and been a part of this journey with us. So Celebrate Recovery is a biblical and balanced program that helps us to overcome any of our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. It is based on the actual words of Jesus rather than psychological theory. Celebrate Recovery is more effective in helping change lives than anything I've ever seen. Anything. Over the years, God has used this program to transform literally thousands of lives. This program was actually born, it's an international program now, and it was born in Saddleback Church, Rick Warren's church, Pastor Rick Warren in California. And it was started by a man named John Baker, and he was someone struggling with alcohol. And that's something I want to stress so I don't forget, because this is one of the very important things and difference between our program and other programs, is we are not addicts. We don't have addictions. Our identities are in Jesus Christ. We struggle with. So when I introduce myself at our meetings and when any of our participants introduce themselves, you will hear us saying, I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with, I struggle with codependency and perfectionism. And I say, hi, my name is Jackie. I struggle with. If I go into a place where they're going to tell me that you are an addict and they're labeling you and I receive that unto myself, you've just received death unto yourself. Because that is not who we are. I am a victor in Jesus Christ, and I have struggles. I'm a human being. We all are going to have struggles without fail. So that is a very important distinction. But John Baker was the writer of this, and he was struggling with alcohol, and he lost his family and his job, and he started into an AA program, and he was going to Rick Warren's church at Saddleback, and God moved on him and said, search the scriptures. There is a biblical basis to these 12 steps. And he wrote this program and presented it to Pastor Rick Warren and said, I think, you know, God wants you to do this in your church. And when Pastor Rick read it, he said, yeah, absolutely, there's something to this. And you're the guy that God wants to do it. And that was like 27 or 28 years ago, and John Baker overcame and got his life back and become a pastor, and the rest is history. I cited this program, Celebrate Recovery, is in over 30,000 churches. I think that's an old number. It's worldwide, nationwide, and is really actually a movement of Jesus, is what it is. It's the real deal. We are dealing with stuff. We're no longer just sitting in a pew with a mask on. saying, yeah, everything's okay. We're willing to step up and say everything's not okay. My husband and I sat in a pew, went to church our whole lives. And we had struggles and we had issues. And nobody was really helping us, even when we reached out for it in our church. And God moved on me and said, you got to be real. You got to be transparent. You got to get outside the church. Folks, people aren't coming inside the walls of our church anymore. We have to get out there and just live life with people and be willing to say, look, this is what's happening in my life and here's where I found help. And still, you don't have a perfect life. Once you come to Christ and you deal with some of your struggles, this is, we're walking in the victory, yes, but we are going to have struggles. We have to be real about it. So it really is, Celebrate Recovery is a discipleship program. It just walks people right into a relationship with the one and only higher power, Jesus Christ. It's amazing, actually, to watch. Most people are familiar with the 12 steps, but this is a very different way that we do 12 steps. So there are 6 features that make Celebrate Recovery unique. Celebrate Recovery is based on the Word, the Bible. It is forward-looking. So while when you come and we set in our groups and we do group work just like any other 12-step program, and there's a 1-hour kind of like a service type, we have worship, we share a lesson or we share a testimony, we go over the 8 principles or we go over the 12 steps, and then you find that there's, group work, men and women separate and do groups towards the end of the evening. What we do is we dig down to our past only for the purpose of finding the core root issues and then moving on from that. So we are forward-looking. We don't just sit there and keep going over and over and over the things and the bad mistakes and the bad choices we make, but we look forward to what we know is freedom. Celebrate Recovery also emphasizes personal responsibility. So no longer can we play the accuse game, that it's everybody else's fault, or look what happened to me, or poor me. But we have to own up to our own choices and make our own decisions. And life's hard. And yes, people hurt us. And yes, we hurt other people. But it's just a process, really a coping way of learning how to live life when you go through these steps and these principles. And it isn't a one-and-done deal. It's not like you're coming to a Bible study for 8 or 10 or 12 weeks and then you're done and you move on in life. This is learning how to live life. This should become part of your daily life and how to really, cope and manage in these hard circumstances we find ourselves. Celebrate Recovery emphasizes spiritual commitment to Jesus Christ. Absolutely. And we utilize the biblical truth that we need each other in order to grow spiritually and emotionally. There you go, church. There's the community. We need each other. We have to have people that are willing to come and be a part and to help, and to not just come and be a part of ours in Indiana, but be willing to start other Celebrate Recovery programs, to come and say, what can I do, to be a sponsor, to be an accountability partner. These are all very important things that happen within these programs that help them to be so successful. We also address all types of hurts, habits, and hang-ups. So like I was saying before, if we don't deal with the issues and our core root problem, then we very easily can get into these addictive problems. And the exciting thing is to have folks come that haven't gotten to that point yet and they're willing to deal with their issues, and you see the freedom come. We've had a variety of people come to Celebrate Recovery. We've had many women that have been struggling with divorce situations. They've come and worked through the steps. I worked at IUP for 20 years and tried to connect with the students a lot there. And any students that we have seen come actually have pretty much been dealing with anxiety, depression, identity crisis. There's just a myriad of things as human beings that we can deal with, and we need to just stop long enough to acknowledge, step out of denial, and learn how to cope with these things. Christ called us to serve in this way, as we have had many of our own struggles with drugs, alcohol, our own poor decisions, and severe consequences. Jim and I have had all of these things. We've had marital problems. It truly is only by the grace of God that we are here and married 33 years. It's not been easy, folks. And it's probably not going to be easy for the next 33 either. But with Christ, we have done it, and we have lived all of these things. And see, that's what God asks you to do, is when you have dealt with something and overcome, then step out and help others. So we've been there, and that makes a difference. We have dealt with these things. We've had an infant son die. We have had our parents recently. We've buried 3 parents in the last 3 years, and both of my parents had dementia. I mean, we've lived some hard things in our life, and we're willing to reach out and help other people through it. It is truly exciting when someone decides to start the Celebrate Recovery journey. You will see life change in dramatic ways. It's a miracle. You will experience freedom from your life's hurts, habits, and hang-ups when you allow Jesus to be the Lord in every area of your life. So there are 8 principles that go along with the program. And it really just starts out, you realize you're not God. That was a tough one for me. I kind of thought I was. I didn't realize that I thought I was, but how I was running my life and telling everybody to live, I thought I was. So when we realize that we're not God, we see that our life is unmanageable, then we're ready to take the first step. We earnestly believe that God exists, consciously choose to commit all of our life to Christ, openly examine and confess our faults. That's the part when people might come and they'll say, yeah, I'm going to work through my stuff, and they commit and they start actually working the steps. When they get to some of these middle steps that you're going to confess your faults, they say this is too hard and I'm out. And that makes us sad, but again, it's their choice. Voluntarily submit to any and all changes God wants to make in my life and evaluate all my relationships. Offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me and make amends for harm that I have done to others. Reserve a daily time with God for self-examination, Bible reading, and prayer, and yield myself to be used by God to bring this good news to others. And that's what we're doing here, is yielding ourselves to bring the good news to others. That's the 8 principles. Those principles all have corresponding scripture verses, and you will find them in Matthew 5, which are called the Beatitudes. And that was Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And when you really look at it, he gave us the principle for recovery. That's what we follow. And then the 12 steps, which are the 12 basic steps of any program. And I won't go over those, but they also all have scripture, and we review those every other week. 12 steps the one week and 8 principles the other week. There is such a stigma around this crisis. We get to thinking again that it's those people. But it's not those people. It's all of us. From our experiences, I truly know that this is just another battle from our enemy, Satan. And he is after all of us. He is no respecter of person. It affects a myriad of people in all walks of life, and we've heard that today. It's amazing. We had a guest at our Celebrate Recovery last year from West Virginia, and his name's Lou. And he actually is one of our state representatives for Celebrate Recovery, and in his testimony, he came to share with us the whole way from West Virginia, drove in on a Monday night just specifically. When people have found freedom, you would never believe the stuff that the people in Celebrate Recovery do to reach out and help others. They call it your forever family. Once you come to Celebrate Recovery, you have a forever family. But in his testimony, he was a medical doctor, and he shared with us that he started taking Vicodin to help himself with unaddressed issues, with his own hurts and hang-ups in his life. He had perfectionism, life pressures that he wasn't able to cope with, which led to stress-related symptoms like headaches and anxiety. So he started taking this Vicodin. And the samples, he was taking the samples that the drug people bring that's in the doctor's cabinets, which of course is illegal, and it became habit-forming for him. And he had gotten up to taking 40 pills a day. He too lost everything. He lost his practice, his medical license, his wife, his family. He had felony charges brought against him. But his story came full circle when he found Christ and Celebrate Recovery. I also read a similar story in Guidepost magazine from January 2018 issue of a pastor who was addicted to opioids and lost his job in ministry over it, but his family and church stood beside him. And he also attended Celebrate Recovery, which helped him find the healing in the recovery that he needed. So it is no respecter of persons. It can be anybody, any one of us. So please know that I am not just sharing with you today to promote our own ministry, but to let you know that there truly is a way out. There truly is hope and healing. And if you want to be a part of the solution for our community, you need to check in to these ways. There are other programs. There are lots of different things. And what I find most successful as well with Celebrate Recovery, is the folks need to do other things, So it is a coming together of the community. I mean, we work with the Guidance Center. We work with the Open Door. We go back and forth. I have counselors, in Indiana that are very familiar with Celebrate Recovery, and, so I refer to them. They refer to us. So there we see a community of believers coming together, to help. And that's what we need to do as the churches out here in our communities, is to find out about these things and come together. So even though, Celebrate Recovery resides in a specific church currently, and I believe we've given everybody a brochure about it, we are at Word of Grace Fellowship, and we meet on Monday nights. There's a light meal. Oh, Jim's going to do it. Okay, light meal at 5:30. And our worship is at 6 o'clock. And our small groups start at 7, and then we end with cafe. So we currently reside at Word of Grace Fellowship, and it's at 603 South 5th Street in Indiana. But just because, we reside in a particular church, it's open to everybody. Anybody can come. It doesn't matter, if you belong to that church or a denomination or anything. It's open to everybody. So we just want to make you aware of that. And as Pastor Dale has been preparing and praying to start a CR here in this community, is one amazing thing that is happening through our work and our efforts together, that we are praying about this local community specifically. And my husband and I are graduates of Purchase Line High School, and we've lived in this area all of our life, and we currently reside in Marion Center. So our heart is here and for the people, and we want to see what we can do. I'm also excited that recently I've been invited into the Marion Center Ministerium, and they are praying and talking to their churches about how to start a Celebrate Recovery or to get involved in this particular situation. And I'm also working with a group in Clymer, and Pastor Dale just connected with us this week, and myself, Judge Welsh, Pastor Kendra. We had a gentleman there from Spirit Life, and we had a gentleman there from the Drug and Alcohol Commission, and we are prayerfully looking into purchasing a house in Clymer to start a recovery house. So there are many, many ways you can get involved, and we need you to be praying and seeking. And also we need the index cards handed out to everyone. Did we do that as well? So what I'm going to ask you to do, as I have shared all of this information, and you've heard a lot of things today, to pray and think about these endeavors. But I want you to take your index card, and on one side I want you to write your hurts, habits, and hang-ups. If anything came to your mind while I was speaking and sharing today, anything that you're struggling with, and yes, you have some, because as human beings we all have them, and what we have found is, even though we work on things and our leaders can share with you the things they have worked on and struggled with, then what God does is say, that's great, that's wonderful, Jackie, we've overcome this. Oh, but look over here. There's still something you have to work on, right? And I think that's the way it will be, for our whole human lives. Once we get to heaven and we're with Jesus, then we will be made perfect. But we all have things to work on. So just take a moment to think about that. And on the other side of your card, write down what you specifically or your local church could do. And believe me, starting a Celebrate Recovery is a time-intensive work. So maybe that's not something that you can do, but you can join in with ours. There's one in Mahaffey that meets on Thursday nights. Like I said, there's one in Homer City on Thursday nights. We all need help in some way. The biggest thing you can do is prayer. You can pray for us, because let me tell you, when I talk about spiritual warfare, we as leaders encounter spiritual warfare on a regular basis with our own families, our own lives. It's a tough go when you're on the front line. It's pretty much like you're saying to Satan, here I am, just put an X on my back. It takes a lot of prayer. We need a lot of prayer. So just prayerfully think about these things. And again, I'll just mention the 5 points. As a church, we need to acknowledge the issues. We need to come to prayer. We need to educate ourselves. We need to have a heart and care for each other. And we need to come together. So thank you so much. for the opportunity to share today. It's amazing to be with you all and to be with people who truly care enough to come out and spend a Saturday and to listen. So thank you, and thank you, Pastor Dale. And I also have a lot of these with me as well. If you know any place that you can put these up in public places in your churches, please see me and I'll give you some flyers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sister. It's about 3 after 2, so we will be back here at 13 after, and we'll have our last segment. So take a break, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thanks. Sorry. All right, welcome back. We're going to get started with our final segment of today. As I said when we started this morning, that I had an offer or request to make of you folks. You've seen how this has grown. If you were here for last year's event, we're about twice the size in attendance of what we were last year. And what we're going to ask of you folks is to consider praying about being a part of planning the next one. We'd like to hold these events once a year. So what we'd like to do is have your input. We need your help. We need your input on that. So I'd ask you to prayerfully consider being a part of planning our next year's event. So please do that. And that being said, I'd like to welcome a dear brother. Please welcome Justin Buchanan. Brother, come on up.
I just want to thank everybody coming out, and the speakers. I mean, thank you for sharing. It really helps. But I want to read you something out of Proverbs. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. The only thing I ever submitted to in my life was drugs before the Lord. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about me growing up. I was the oldest of 4, lived in Brockway, Pennsylvania. Growing up, I had a sister a year younger than me, and I was pretty quiet for the most part. Going through school, just quiet. Just usually hanging out with my sister, my cousins, and always angry though. Always mad and didn't understand why I was mad. Grade school, always fighting, getting in trouble, just acting out. Got into high school, I liked to play baseball. And so I started playing baseball, just liking that, getting into that, meeting other people. And finding just a newer crowd to hang out with, I guess. People a lot older than me, to be honest with you. So I started drinking at a young age. 15 years old, started drinking. It wasn't every weekend. It started to be every night. I lived at my grandma's, so living at my grandma's, she could only do so much. I'd come in, but started drinking at a young age, thinking I knew what was best. I'm thinking it's a small town, that's what we do, we drink, and there's nothing wrong with drinking. That's what I was thinking. It's okay to drink, As soon as you turn 21, you're loud. So I started drinking, acting up, but I could see, that I needed guidance in my life because it got worse. 10th grade, 11th grade. I started doing cocaine, started dealing cocaine in 10th, 11th grade. And by 12th grade, I was not only selling it, I was doing it 6 months straight, every day. But then I quit. And in 12th grade, I started drinking. Me and my sister graduated school. My parents were in Tennessee with my younger brother and younger sister. I said, what do we do in a small town when we graduate high school? We party. So we go out there and we had a big party. I jump on a 4-wheeler, flying down the road, rolled it across pavement, shattered my collarbone, and laid out in the field. Well, when I come to, I realized my collarbone was shattered. Went home, wrapped a bed sheet around it, started drinking more beer. Here comes the cops. They said, I take it you're going wrecked. I said, yeah. And up to that time, I wanted to be going to the Marines. That was my whole goal in even getting out of high school. I wanted a career in the Marines. So I went to the hospital, and I was supposed to sign that week for the Marines. They said your collarbone shattered. So I went there and called the recruiter, and he goes, "You can't come." Guys, that was my only plan. That was plan A. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't know what to do. So it devastated me. I mean, 18 years old, have no clue, shattered collarbone. So I knew I had to get a job. So I went to a place called the Walmart Warehouse. I had family members there. And I started, that's when I first got introduced to the opiates, the pain pills. So I went up there, again, I thought I was slick enough to even fool these guys. Took the brace off at Walmart, went through the interview. I thought I could buy 3 or 4 weeks at least. Well, I was hired in 2 weeks. So if anybody knows the Walmart Warehouse, it's not easy work. So I started working and eating pain medication every day, all day long. And started drinking, I had Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. Started drinking on a regular basis. Then this lasted for a while, but then I had to go back and fix my shoulder. I had to get a plate in there. So at this time, I'm 21 years old. And so I had to took time off work to get to Hill, so I started going to bars on a regular basis. And when I say go to bars, it was every single night. Figured I can start selling coke to make money, just doing these things. And I remember I went to a bar one time, and there's this guy who's treating a woman like you should never treat her. I thought, I'll take care of this. Went outside, and I was just so angry, so I started beating on this guy. And there was people trying to drag me off, and I would not stop. And his girlfriend upstairs, she lives right there, went upstairs and grabbed the gun and held it right to my head. So if you don't get off, I'm going to kill you. It's not like I was strong. I just didn't care. I felt nothing. So I got up, and, I could see myself just spiraling. So 24, 25 years old, started doing, just like I said, going to bar. And all of a sudden, I met a girl. I met a girl that, I got to know, and it was the first time I was honest with anybody in my entire life. I didn't have to be strong anymore. I could tell her how scared I really was, and tell her how bad I was really hurting. And I quit doing drugs. I quit drinking for 2 to 3 years. Started living what I thought was right, working hard, making money, living on my own. Started lifting weights. Messed my shoulder up again, another surgery, and I started eating pain pills again. But this time I wasn't just eating them, I was abusing them every way you could abuse them. And I was justifying everything. Well, I'm not out there drinking beer. I'm in here playing PlayStation, snorting a few pills. Just justifying things. It ain't hurting my wife at the time. It ain't hurting her because she's upstairs sleeping. She has no clue what's going on. And January 2007, I found out I was going to be a father. I was never so scared in my life. I had 9 months to straighten my act up. September 30th, 2007, I got to hold my son for the first time. And I remember just picking him up thinking, I will never let nobody hurt you. But what I should have been asking somebody is please save him from me, because I'm going to destroy this kid's life. I'm going to destroy everything about this kid. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know I don't know how to ask for help. So I thought, I'm strong enough to come out of this. I know I can do this. So it started getting worse. I was working at the glass plant again. I got a job at the glass plant. I was doing that, and I was living a double life. I started selling drugs. Started dealing, using. I was working 2 full-time jobs, one at the glass plant to provide for my family, and just dealing drugs and to provide for my addiction. And I just kept on remembering, then it's getting, I can see me doing things that I would never do in my life. I started going to Pittsburgh and coughing drugs, thinking, it's okay. I'm getting robbed. I'm starting to rob people. And I'm like, this is not who I am, but this is who I'll become. I come home one night, I was out, my wife at the time, she called and she said, Justin, you need to come home. I come home and my whole family's sitting there. They said, you need help, Justin. And I just remember being so tired. And I was scared to get help. I have a little brother, he's 10 years younger than me. I've never seen him cry. He's like, I just want my brother back. I just want him back. How do you give somebody something that you don't know who you are anymore? Because trust me, if I could do it my own, I would have done anything for this kid. But I couldn't. So I went up to a place in Altoona, Pyramid, Altoona. I didn't have a driver's license, I didn't have nothing. I was never so dope sick in my life. They do wean me off Suboxone, but they didn't know how old I was, so guess where? I laid in bed and weaned off myself. And I'm thinking, man, this sick addict thinking, I'm thinking, how can I get out of here and not look like it's my fault? So I'm going and trying to fill fluids, and there's a guy, a big guy, talking about shooting dope. I thought, there's my ticket. I'm going to rip him up. I just got kicked out. So that's exactly what I did. I'm like, man, we all know how to do drugs. Look around, we're in a rehab. So we got into it. I said, I'm going to call my wife. And anybody that's been in a facility knows it's a loudspeaker. And my wife picks up, and I said, listen, I'm coming home. I said, I'm learning how to do more drugs in this rehab than I am on the streets. She goes, you don't have a home, Justin. You don't have a family. And I just remember being so broke. Just going to my room, dropping to my knees and just looking up and saying, God, if there's a God, please, please show me and I'll follow you. I kid you not, 10 minutes he answered me. And when he answered me, I was trying, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, that was just coincidence. I just cried out and he answered me. There's no way God answers in 10 minutes. Just no way. So they transferred me. In the middle of that night, they didn't even know if my insurance would pay up to it. I think up towards Bellefonte, towards State College area, to a house, and man, things started changing. Like, I don't know, I'm seeing things that I've never seen before. And I'm finding myself, like, I wasn't worried about my family, I wasn't worried about my son, I was just finding who I am. We had a meeting in the mountain, and I remember just enjoying it. I come back, and they went to the room and they said, Justin, come on in. They said, your grandma's passed last night. My grandma was the only woman I ever listened to in my life. High or not high. She said, Justin, sit down. I sat down. And she's dying while I'm in a rehab. Don't even know where I'm at. And I'm in a rehab. And what am I doing? So I remember just coming home, thinking, just remember, honestly, I couldn't stand talking to my parents at the time because I'm like, why would you not call? My grandma was asking for me, and you guys don't understand. I loved her more than I loved anybody. And they just wouldn't call. I just wanted to tell her goodbye. Just wanted to tell her goodbye. And it wasn't 3 days, and I was eating pills again and getting in trouble. And my wife and my son my wife took my son, she goes, I can't do this no more. And I knew that day she was serious. And I have a best friend. This friend I grew up playing sports with. I love this kid like a brother. But we were like gasoline together. And this kid was a good kid. He calls me up the day after my wife left. He said, Justin, I want to come talk to you. I said, man, I'm fighting for my family right now, bud. I just got off work midnight date. I said, I can't do this. He goes, please. I said, what? I'm thinking, what could hurt? 8 in the morning, I'm going upstairs to watch TV no matter what. I always put SportsCenter on. I went upstairs, and it was like 9:30. He jumps on the other side of bed. We're both watching SportsCenter. And we both fell asleep. We woke up around noon. I said, what's up, man? He said, I just want to tell you I love you, man. I miss you. He goes, you were like a brother. He goes, you're like a brother to me. He goes, and I just miss you so much. I said, well, I miss you too. Went to work that night, took him home, went to work that night. I got off work, and my phone's blowing up, and I'm thinking, oh, here it goes. My family just found out I relapsed. I'm going back to a facility. I stopped at Sheets and barricaded in. My sister said, Justin, I just want you to know, He took his life last night. And I just remember thinking, what kind of person am I? Like, please, I don't want this no more. Like, I destroyed my son, I destroyed my wife, my grandma let her down, and my best friend just took his life. Please tell me why I'm even living. So, that day, I didn't care if I lived or died. I moved back to my parents' house in the basement, just thinking, this is what it is. So I started going down to Pittsburgh dealing drugs, and I started robbing people and getting robbed. Doing things that I'm not very proud of. And I just remember sitting in my parents' basement and my father. I'd never seen my father break down too much. And it was crazy because I had bad thoughts in my head that morning. He said, Justin, please don't do this. You have a son. I said, Dad, please just take care of Landon and tell him I love him, but I can't do this no more. When he left, I started writing a letter to my son. Just remember saying, Dear Landon, I'm so sorry that I'm a failure to you. I'm sorry. I don't even know how to explain. How do you explain to your son that you're gone? How do you explain that you love him but you're taking your life? And that's what I was doing. I was writing a letter and I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, why? He's better off. And that's what I was thinking. He is better off without me than he is with me. I'm going to destroy this kid forever. So I went there and I couldn't do it. So I went down to Pittsburgh. And I had an aunt and a sister that loved me dearly and they were with me the whole time. And I remember coming back and my sister said, Justin, she goes, God's got a plan for your life. That made me a little upset, I'll be honest. I said, plan? Let me tell you about this plan, Tanya. I said, the jogging pants I've been wearing, 5 days old. Haven't showered in 5 days. God can find so many more people better than me that he could use anybody but me. And she goes, I'm telling you, stick in there. She goes, I know there's something God's going to do in your life. And I didn't want to hear it because how I felt is God proved how real he is. And I walked away. So I went down to Pittsburgh and I was coughing drugs and I got robbed. I chased this kid 7 blocks. Come around the corner and there's 6, 7 of them there. 2 or 3 of them pulled a gun out. I walked right to him. I walked right at him. I said, please do this. This is what I've been waiting for. Please do this. By the grace of God, I walked the other way. They let me walk. So I went home and just a mess, guys. You don't understand? A mess. Like I was wrecking my vehicle. And I had my mom. And my mom loves me, but she's an enabler. She never wanted to tell me how bad I really was. So, again, went down, coughed 20 Xanax bars, took 15 out of the 20. She found me face down on the floor, and she was crying. She goes, you're going to die, Justin. And for her to cry, sit there and say, you're going to die, I knew I need something. I'm like, it's not a matter of time. I mean, for a week straight, my vehicle was missing a part every time I came home. And my sister's like, I want to talk to you, Justin. She goes, I'm moving out of Brockway. I said, okay, well, where are you moving? She goes, just to DuBois. She goes, but I can't be in the same town. My brother's going to die. I said, Tanya, I'm not that bad. I mean, I'm only taking Xanax and Subutex most of the time. I said, that's okay. She goes, you're going to die. And she told me about this place called Teen Challenge. I said, well, that would have been cool 10, 15 years ago. But I'm in my 30s now. There's nothing cool about going to Teen Challenge in your 30s. And she goes, she wouldn't stop. And I just tried to get her to shut up. I said, I'll tell you what. After the New Year's, I'll come up and I'll talk. But that's how I was. Just to get her to shut up. Let's push her away from me. I did. So just fast forward, and it was New Year's Eve. And I only had 2 good friends that didn't do drugs. I thought I'd spend New Year's with them, and I was just not with it. I'm just sitting there thinking, remember thinking, man, this is the first time I talked to God in a long time. I'm like, God, am I supposed to go away? What am I supposed to do, man? I mean, I'm like, I haven't talked to you in a long time. And I didn't know, but I woke up the next day, New Year's Day, went up to my sister's. knowing clearly I had to go to this place called Teen Challenge. I said, I'll tell you what, I was a negotiator. I said, let me call them, we'll tour it, see how it is, and we'll go from there. So I called it, and they said, it's a year program. I said, oh no. No year for me. I said, 30 days. Then I thought, you know what, maybe if I like it, I'll do 90 days. And I knew my sister, she said, okay, 90 days, just go. And I went up, and it was, so the night before I got all ripped up, and my little brother, my sister, and my other sister, they took me to this place called Youngstown, Ohio Valley Teen Challenge. And I looked, and it's an old hospital. I said, Tanya, this don't look too nice. She goes, Justin, you ain't on vacation. You're going to get help. I said, well, I guess you're right. So I walked in this place, and I had a bunch of guys, most of my age, that come up. Welcome, brother. I love you. I thought, man, this hospital's still running. I'm on the wrong floor. I'm an addict. You don't sit here and tell me you love me. And, like, what's wrong with these people? Here, well, I was in the right hospital. I was in the right place. It was just, so I didn't talk to nobody. Honestly, for 30 days, I did what I had to. And I just remember sitting there, and it's well structured. You're talking work 8 hours, Bible study, chapel, class. That's all you did. And I didn't talk to nobody. For the first time, I had it set in my head, I'm not here to fit in. I'm here to find something out in this. I'm here to find out what's going on. And I remember sitting in chapel. I just remember thinking, my son, man, and I just sitting there thinking, I'm like, God. And John, I think chapter 10, 25 through 27. My sheep hear my voice. They listen to me. They follow me. No one can snatch them out of my hand. I just remember going to the altar and just crying out to him, telling him how sorry I am. Oh my God, I'm so sorry for destroying all these people's lives, but I'm more sorry that I didn't follow you when you answered me. Please just help me get this regret. Please just help me. And I remember just leaving chapel that day with 400 pounds off my shoulder. And I knew how great God really was. And I dedicated my life. I said, I'm going to find out who this man named Jesus really is. And I started reading the Bible. And I was letting nobody in that place get in my way. I'm reading the Bible. And honestly, the 3-month plan didn't work. Let's be real. But I got to visit my son come up. And I haven't seen him sober in 2 years, 3 years. And I remember the first 2 months were pretty, I got to see him for 3 hours each month. First 2 months, I was okay. The third month, he came over. He just sat in my lap. He said, I miss you, Dad. And I thought, what am I doing? This is the first time I had to deal with my son hurt so bad, and I felt at that time. I was sober. I knew how much pain I was putting in my son's. I'm like, what am I doing? So I just remember going back to the room. I'm thinking, I'm leaving. And I'm like, Justin, you're here for a reason. This is God's plan. So, to be honest with you, I did 6 months, but I have a sister. She is a true Christ follower. We had a plan before I left that I was going to do sales for her furniture business. And I said, the only thing I ever sold was drugs. I don't think I'll be able to sell furniture. She goes, she's like, it'll work. Went down to Pittsburgh. I had my little sister drop me off Pittsburgh. And this was the good part of Pittsburgh. So we had a craft show, and I just remember sitting there, and I was scared to death. I couldn't even talk to her, and I've known her all my life. She's like, what's wrong, Justin? I said, I just want to go back. She goes, you want to go back? I said, I want to just go back. These people know who I am. These people can relate. I said, these people love me. And she goes, well, we love you too. And I said, you just don't understand. You just don't understand. And I couldn't talk. I couldn't sell. I thought, you're already losing money. And so I sat there, and she goes, here, Justin, here's $10. And I'm not kidding you. Here, the parking lot, there was a McDonald's. She goes, I want the receipt. I said, okay. Went and used the bathroom. There's 2 people shooting dope in the bathroom. And any other time I wouldn't tell my sister because I wouldn't want her to worry. So I went back. I said, Tanya, there's 2 people shooting dope up. And she goes, you didn't touch none, did you? I said, no. I said, we're sitting there talking out. Well, I hear that person collapsed and died, and people were walking over them like their life didn't matter. So things are getting good. I'm not learning how to sell any furniture, to be honest. So I thought she would just donate money. You know, because I do. But I went to this place. It was crazy. It was in July, Kutztown, Pennsylvania. And my sister don't miss work, and she couldn't go to work that day. She's like, I'm sick. She goes, you're going to have to open a tent and run it. I said, Tanya, I can't talk. I said, I cannot talk to people. I don't even know your product, to be honest. And she said, just open it and sit there. Oh, I tell you, you got to be there. So I went there, and this lady come up, and we're sitting there talking. She goes, boy, this would be a nice table for Bible study. I said, are you kidding? And I'm talking to God the whole time, thinking, God, I know this ain't your plan. Please let me know what you want me to do. 5 minutes later, he's like, this is a good table for Bible study. I said, excuse me, I said, I didn't hear what you said. What did you say? She goes, it'd be a great table for a Bible study. I'm like, okay, God, you made it nice and clear. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. From that day on, I learned how to sell furniture. Come back in July, and I was showering. I was supposed to go up to State College, and my sister goes, Justin, the cops are looking for you. I thought she was joking. By now, I'm 7, 8 months clean. And she goes, I wish I was. So I called him. She goes, the cop said, yeah, where you at? I said, I told her about my sister. I said, can you just do me a favor and not come arrest me in front of my nephew? I said, I'm not going nowhere. I'll show up. So I met him. Got arrested for a charge for dealing drugs, basically. And I got thrown in jail. And people, I got there like, Justin, where you been? They're all, I said, I've been in this place called Teen Challenge. I said, and they're like, I bet this makes you want to use this. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to show you guys how great God really is when you let him work through your life. And I was clashing. I'm talking Facebook, the radio, the TV, the newspaper. And I thought, oh, man. Got bailed out, and went up to State College. And I knew, I was okay. I'm not saying it didn't hurt a little bit. It hurt, but I was okay because I knew, I knew how great God really was. So I'm starting to sell furniture. Come January, I had to face my charges. I was looking at 2 felonies and a year in prison. I don't have $10,000 to waste on a lawyer. So I've got a public defender. And backed up real quick. I got a public defender, but before I was getting sentenced, I was working for a guy doing landscaping. And this guy was driving nuts. He's like, I don't know. And he goes, I don't know how you can just act like it never happened. I said, what do you want me to do, man? I've been arrested. I'm dealing with my past. There's nothing to do. He goes, would you like to go to a Bible study? I said, absolutely not. I said, I don't even want to go to Walmart. I said, everybody knows who I am now. And he asked me 3 times. I thought, I'm going to do you this favor, then don't ask me again. So I drive over to this place called Temple Baptist Church. And I'm looking on my phone for an excuse to give him. I'm sitting in the parking lot trying to find an excuse why I shouldn't walk in. So I thought, man, I can't even find an excuse. I threw my phone down and I walked in. I'm walking like this and I'm peeking in the corner. I'm like, well, I don't know that person. I don't know that person. I don't know that person. And I see this pastor staring at me. I thought, well, I better sneak in there. I walked in. And it was about, when he started breaking down scripture, I knew that exactly where I was supposed to be. That was the same breakdown scripture Teen Challenge I learned. So I'm like, okay, God. I said, I'll come here on Wednesday nights, but that's it. Making bargains with him. So I said, Wednesday nights it is. So I showed up the next Wednesday, and this pastor come up to me and goes, Justin, I had my struggles. I thought, yeah, I bet you have. I didn't want to hear him though. And he goes, here's a card. By this time, I'm getting close to a year clean. And I thought, I put the card on my mirror. I thought, I'm not texting him. I texted him. I said, I believe God wants me to tell a story, but I said, I don't know when it's a good time or where. He said, let's go for a coffee. So I said, listen, I don't want to be in the public eye right now. We walk into this coffee shop. They had a woman's Bible study there. I said, this is the public eye. Let's go for it. So we went to the walkway. And honestly, I didn't trust the guy. I don't know the guy. So he's in there and I'm telling my story. This guy's not, I'm like telling him all the details, all the bad stuff I did, and he's standing right beside me. I thought, this guy's as messed up as I am. I like it. So I just got in, just really got to know this guy. I mean, then I can consider him to be my pastor. And I remember that night we started Bible study. I think we did one on Mondays, Tuesdays, and he has one on Wednesday. Then Thursday we had a beginner's Bible study. I remember coming down to the basement Thursday because I knew I had to face charges on Friday. My pastor, he said, you ain't going to believe it. My lawyer says I'm going to prison for a year. He looks me straight in the eye and said, well, Justin, prison needs ministry too. I thought, he is sick. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear, Justin, a little bit of sympathy wouldn't hurt. And, that was the best thing he could have told me because I went home. I thought, God, if that's where you want me, put me in prison. I'm going to speak. I'm going to tell everybody about Jesus one way or another. Went to the court that next day, and I told my lawyer, I said, listen, you just put me in front of the judge. I said, I'll take care of the rest. He goes, you don't know what you're doing. I said, no, I don't. I said, but I'll take care of the rest. So I'm sitting there, and there's a guy off to the left of me staring at me like, who is this guy? I'm sitting there. And this guy, he ran right up to me and goes, what's your story? I said, listen, I'm a drug addict. I said, I got a second chance. God saved me. And by that time, the judge comes in and he goes, hey, Justin. He's like, you look good. You put on 40 pounds. I said, at least. And we're sitting there talking. I said, listen. I said, Judge, I got a second chance in life. And I said, God's gave me a second chance. And I said, I don't expect you to believe me. Actually, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe me if I was you guys to do. I don't expect you guys to believe me. I said, but give me a chance. Give me a chance, and I'm going to show you how great God really is. The DA over here said he'll be the first one in Jefferson County drug court. He come up to me and he goes, are you willing to talk that way in front of anybody? I said, you bring them. I'll talk to them. Got mandated 14 months of drug court. It was great. I got to preach the gospel twice a month. Like it or not, they weren't leaving. So I graduated drug court, and I just, God's opened so many doors in my life that it's just amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. He's put people in my life that I definitely don't deserve. But that's my story. But as churches, I don't struggle with addiction. People are like, you're going to deal with this the rest of your life. No, I struggle with trying to help that next person. I'm always up. I'm always driving that man right there nuts. Because I'm like, listen, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do. As churches, man, I told the pastor when I went to his church, I said, listen, I'll come to your church, but we're going to get out of these pews. We got a dying world out there, guys. They're not coming in this church. So our church is really important. It's really important. Get equipped here, but go out there and share the gospel. Because that's the only way. And God, like I said, this guy was my pastor. He's my friend. And he's my family now. I love this man with all my heart. This guy took a chance when the world's telling him, you're making a mistake. You're gonna fail at this. But he's right there beside me. This man went to 14 months of drug court right with me. And this man stands behind me in everything I do. Is he easy on me? Absolutely not. He's really hard on me. But I see how much this man loves the Lord. And I see how his daily walk is. And I want it. I want it more and more each day. So as church people, as true Christ followers, because there's a big difference from believing in Christ following. People don't understand that. Everybody believes when life gets hard. But are you following God? Do you know God? Do you read the Bible? Because it's called a relationship. He already knows you, but do you know him? That's when everything changed, when I found out how great Jesus Christ was. I'm going to let my pastor come up and finish this off. I mean, we're our team. I like to come up and sweep my mess up. So Pastor Kevin, come on up.
This is something that Justin and I do, sort of tag team a little bit. And when I first met Justin, one thing about going last, everything's already been said. And when I first met Justin, I couldn't get him to say 3 words. Now I don't get to say 3 words. But it's awesome. He's got a testimony that only God can give him, and God wants to use that testimony. And when Justin and I met, that night he came into the church for the very first time. I'm waving like this at the security team because this guy's peeking around a corner and he ain't coming in. But since then, we've only known each other for maybe 2 years, a little over 2 years, and God has opened some amazing doors. I still go to drug court, even though he's graduated. I still have to go because God told me to go, not because I have to go. But it's been awesome. You know, one of the verses I want to share quickly with you is John 8:31 and 32. If you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciple. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You see, sobriety is not the goal. It's freedom is the goal.
Yes.
You know, it's not about, okay, I don't have any more of an addiction. I'm sober. I'm right. No, you're not. Because every one of us come into a point in our life, we're all addicted. We're all addicts. We're all sinners saved by God's grace. And we are addicted to that sinful nature every day, every moment of our lives. We're no different. And Justin come into my life at a time in ministry where I just, you know, I needed something to just fire me up a little bit. And as much as I fired him up, Justin and I did a Bible study. The second time he came without his homework. Third time I called him before he came. I said, you got your homework done? He says, no. I said, don't show up. You're wasting my time. So, Justin and I have a good relationship. He gets his homework done now. But you know, the whole concept of that verse, if you truly are my disciple, you'll know the truth. And that truth will go well beyond sobriety. That truth will set you free. My heart goes out to the families that have lost. My heart goes out to the individuals who don't have someone standing here telling the story of recovery. And I want to tell you, every day, hundreds of kids, hundreds of adults lose their lives because they've just lost the hope. And listen, I've been in many helpless situations in my life. And you've been in many helpless situations in your life. But by God's grace, we're never hopeless. And that's the message we got to give. You know, what allows this connection? Many people have asked, hey, listen, what are you doing, man? We see what you and Justin have, and that's what we're looking for. You're a pastor of a church, and how do you get that connection going? And listen, it wasn't about the church. It was about one man who had a burden to help someone. Listen, we are the church. It's not about the walls. It's not about an address. It's about us. And until we realize that we are addicts to our sinful nature, and we realize that at any given day I can make a choice to go back there, just like the addicts. Except we've learned over the years to hide it. We've learned over the years to put that facade on every Sunday morning and come in our smiles and our suits and our dresses and our good stuff. And we're like, how are you? I'm fine. Listen, I'm going to be real quick here. I could preach a message, but I don't want to do that too long. Fine means you're fearful, you're insecure, you're neurotic, and you're emotional. That's what the word fine means. So the next time somebody says fine to you, which one of are you fearful right now? Are you insecure? You're neurotic, you're emotional. But you know how fast it is in our lives. We're so busy. You know, half the time when somebody answers, how are you? You're already 2 steps beyond them. And you're still trying to hear the answer to that. If churches really want to get involved, it takes much time. And there's many interesting truths that were spoken today about what it takes to be a part of this. But the only thing that I know that I can give you is it has to start with the burden within you. To be that Christ. To be the arms and the hands and the love of Christ. to the people who are crying out, how can I get help? How can I possibly? And so for me, it's about every day waking up and saying, God, thank you for a day I don't deserve. God, please give me the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the continual burden to stop my busy schedule when somebody cries out for help. And you know, that's what we need to do. Listen, there are so many great programs, and interesting enough, we do have an RU program, so I'd love to share that with you. We have an opening over a year. We've been in it. We do the RU program. We got all the RU material in our church. But you know, it's not about the Celebrate Recovery. It's not about the RU. It's not about the 12-step plans. If you want to have change, all of our sin starts in our hearts and in our minds. That's why Romans 12:1-2 says, by the renewing of your mind, things are changed. It's the heart that is desperately wicked, given back over to God and saying, God, I surrender, I give up, I let go. That's the only place that really makes the difference. In many testimonies of individuals, I've been clean for 2 years and then I slipped. I've been this and this, then I slipped. Listen, we have been Christians for how long and how many days have we slipped? It's not much difference. It all comes down to the every morning waking up and thanking God He's given you another opportunity to follow His Son in His footsteps. See, I know and I agree with Justin that many people believe in a God or that there is a God, but there's only one Christ. And you start talking about God and you're okay. Go to schools and talk about God. They'll let you. Mention Christ? No, you can't do that. Why? Because He's the only one that makes a difference. He's the only thing that bridges that Christ connection gap. And when that Christ connection is there, man, everything changes. And it's amazing, man. I tell my church folk all the time, listen, you guys look like you got one foot in the grave. You got to start getting some expressions about how grateful are you that Christ loved you enough to die for you. How grateful, what value can you place on that? And it's simply, here's the value. God says, I don't want your talents. I don't want your techniques, your programs. I don't want anything. What I want is faithful obedience. Just follow me. It's not you doing the work for me. It's me doing the work for you, through you, to glorify my God. Christ came on this earth to glorify His Father. He hasn't changed. Christ still wants to glorify His Father, but this time He wants to do it through you and through me. That's the difference. And if we're going to make an impact, if we're going to have an effect on those around us who are crying out for help, listen, you don't have to go very far to have someone cry out for help for you. You just got to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You got to have the tenderness and the burden to listen to these people. And it's a commitment. It's a strong commitment. Justin does call me about 6 times a day for the past 2 years. He is my adopted son. My wife and I now have been married 7 years. We have 7 children and 14 now grandkids. I just heard we got another one happening here. So, my wife and I today have both lost spouses to cancer. Been down a road that leads you to the bottom of the barrel. I've been on the mountaintop wondering, and I have a picture at home. I took a selfie just before I was going to jump. And I was a pastor for 12 years. Listen, there is no respecter of person in this. We have to be real. We have to be honest between who we are with God. And then we just got to show that realness to everyone else. Listen, that's what Christ's connection did for me. It allowed me to be real. It allowed me to be open. And, you know, when Justin and I met there in the walkway that one night, actually, I think we stayed there at about 1 in the morning. I gave him my story, he gave me his story. You know, it's almost like, okay, let's see who can be worse in our stories, you know. But when it was all said and done, I said, Justin, God has brought you into my life because I prayed for you as much as you prayed for somebody to come into your life. You see, that's what makes a difference, guys. That's what makes the difference when we go out into a world that needs that hope. Are you praying for that? Are you praying for that opportunity for a drug addict to come up and give you a hug while they're still messed up? You see, if we don't pray for the opportunity, God will give it to someone else who is. That's where it starts. We want to have the question?
You know what, I'm listening to all this and I'm hearing you. But I want to give you a little bit of a version of the person from the outside looking in.
Absolutely.
I've never had to deal with drug addiction, thank God.
Mhm.
I was a foster parent for 13 years. You don't want to hear my war stories about my foster children. Now this is my problem, okay? Anybody that's a drug addict, alcoholic, whatever, I pray to God that they get better.
Right.
This is my problem, and I'm not the only one that has this. And I think people need to understand this. I'm diabetic.
Okay.
I didn't ask for it. I'm not complaining that I am. However, the government does not help the average person with their medication and drugs.
Right.
I take $1,800 a month in drugs. I don't pay that, but I pay my fair share. I spent hours, days, months on the phone with drug companies, whatever. I still have to put this money out. I don't mind working, I like to work. I've worked up to 3 jobs in my life in the last 11 years because my husband was on early disability. I've put 3 kids through college, we're still here,
Right.
thank God. Now, this is our resentment from a lot of people that I hear. And I think people that have a drug addiction need to help clarify this. And I'm not a money-hungry person, not at all. As a matter of fact, I hate it. I hate money. If I had my way, we'd go back to bargaining. I can't do that. Now, what I hear a lot about is, gee golly, isn't that fine they get that Narcan for free? That's what I hear. That's what we hear. So I don't know what the answer is there. How not to be resentful. Cindy and Dennis, God love them, are friends of ours. My heart aches. My heart aches.
Absolutely.
I don't begrudge Jeremiah that Narcan. I don't begrudge anybody else that either. But how do you get over that bitterness? What do you do?
If I can take a moment to try to
Can you
answer
understand what
that.
I'm
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely.
And this isn't only me. It's not only me that has this problem. It's the rest of our society that you look at this. That, oh, gee, those people put themselves there. Get yourself out of that hole.
Right.
That's what I hear.
I would answer that question this way. One is, we live in a beautiful but very broken world.
Yeah, we do.
What we have in our journey of life is not because God, but because sin entered into this world, therefore death passed upon all men, for all have sinned. What we face is you have man's way of, foundational man's way of thinking to try to fix a problem that belongs on the foundation of Christ, because it's a hard issue. So this hard issue, man is trying to fix it in many ways. And listen, life's unfair. At times, life absolutely stinks. But to look beyond, to look and see, okay, God, Colossians chapter 1 says that we are to set our sights on things above. We are to set our affections. When we focus our vision horizontally, we lose all sight of what God expects and what God wants for us. To get rid of the, Hebrews chapter 12 says that when we allow that bitterness to set in, man, that's a slippery slope. That's a foothold for God. The world has become very selfish. The world has become all about me. And in that process, we look at someone else's life and we look how bettered their life may be, or we look at that one, hey, you know, that free Narcan that's not free for somebody is going to really, you know, why? They're a drug addict. They're going to die anyway. Let them go. Why waste that money? Their mindset is on the horizontal, and it's not on, there's a soul that God died for right there. When we get our sights off of the above, we lose all perspective. To get rid of that resentment, it's an individual heart issue that you got to come to God and say, you know what, God, take that from me. My eyes are...
personally resent that.
But even many
But
people
it's
who
always
do.
a big question.
Yeah, many people who do.
It's always a big question. And I hear that a lot in society. I don't personally begrudge them. I think, oh God, whatever can come, you know? But it is a battle.
We live in a world that is full of entitlement. We live in a world that is, you know, everybody, a generation. I mean, seriously, you look at the the millennial generation, they're all looking at, and not all, it's very, 100% words aren't fair on this discussion. There are many who look to saying, but I'm entitled to that free cell phone. I'm entitled to that. You know, the government has stepped in, and you're really going to get me on a pedestal in a moment. The government has stepped in and taken the place of a church who has shunned their responsibility. And that's why we have the biggest problem. Because the church has lost the response. They handed over the responsibility. Scripture says we are to take care of the orphans and the widows. That's biblical mandate in 2 Timothy.
Isn't the real answer, is it fair that Christ came to this earth and suffered as he did and died so that we can all have salvation?
He came to seek and save. He came to be the only.
How is any other question fair to ask that when that's what he did?
No.
Why is this person entitled to that and I'm not? You're entitled to salvation through the love of Christ.
And something we don't.
If that's out of your heart, we're not really entitled to ask any other question how this life operates.
Yeah. We have a need to want to know, or a need to know. We have a need to think that if, you know, and again, we live in this world where everything is right here, you know. Interesting enough, when the Israelites went into the Promised Land, what did Moses tell them? Don't forget your God in the land of the blessing. Hey, we've forgotten God in America. I mean, we are blessed by this country, but we forgot all that. So that leads to a mindset and a heart set that, well, yeah, I worked hard for my retirement. I'm going to retire. Preacher, you want me to do what? I'm retired. Same thing. We get this mindset of entitlement, and we get this mindset that it's unfair. What is fair is that every one of us spend eternity in hell. That's fair. What's not fair is it cost God's Son for us to have something that we don't deserve. And we need to switch that back around. And we need to switch that back around in our hearts and our minds to realize that it is all about God. Listen, who of you hung on that cross and paid the price for any of this? He hung on the cross. He paid the price. When you become a Christian, I love this little bumper sticker quotes. When you become a Christian, you know the first thing that happens? You realize that you have the rights to nothing. Because God owns it all. You have the rights to nothing. Sometimes it's hard to take. Sometimes, and listen, I've been at the bottom of the barrels. I've seen individuals, 24 years of ministry. I've dealt with, worked with, been by the bedside, and many of you died. But it doesn't change the fact that really, truly, when we let our hands go, let our hands off of the control wheel, the reason why we do control is because we think we can control the outcome. And I don't want to hurt. I don't like pain. And if I can control my circumstance, God, not you, because God, you're pain. God, you allow me to have pain. God, you allow me to walk through that valley of the shadow of death. That's the journey of life. And God, because you allow that and you give me that pain, God, I'm going to take over control because I don't want pain. I'm going to control it. And that's not reality. We know that. But how many of you do that? How many did that yesterday? Come on. Am I the only one willing to raise my hand? Seriously. Yeah, we take control. Why? Because we want to control the outcome. We want to live the life we have. We don't like change. We don't want things to be uprooted. We don't want things to be different. We finally made it. And we're sort of like, whew. Listen, God never asked us to rest here. God asked us to take his yoke upon us because he is easy. His yoke is rest, and it's easy to take. Rest is for those who are in heaven. I'm sorry.
In other words, what you're stating is you have Dale's wife and I were just discussing this control. I'm a control freak. I've always had to be, which is fine. Not only we control other people's lives, but our own lives. You know, you control your work environment, the work you do. try to control your children, try. That's an operative word, we all know that. So, in other words, you're just saying, oh, blow it all away and give it up to God.
No, because you gotta look at the whole counsel of God. You're just looking at one part of it. The whole counsel of God says, if I give up control to God and say, God, everything belongs to you, then he allows me to enjoy some things on earth that I now become a steward of.
Well, I feel that way. I feel like I have many, many, many blessings, many. In other words, if you have a child or relative that has an alcohol or drug problem, you're saying you can't control that. And I tell my children, I can't control you, and you're alone responsible for your actions.
Right.
I am not. But still, as a parent, you still feel as it comes back on you.
Absolutely.
You know, maybe you weren't hard enough, maybe you were too lenient. I'm not real sure there's a happy medium with it. I'm just not real sure. Because if there is, I haven't found it yet.
Well, the thing of it is that when you're dealing with other people who have also the free will to make choice, you have no control. All you can do is bring them to the opportunity. Or you, Celebrate Recovery, you bring them to the opportunity for them to make the right choices. But you still can't make them make that right choice. And because of that, our responsibility is not about results. It's about faithful opportunity. God gets results. Paul and Apollos, you water, you plant, God gets the increase. So when we let go control, we let go results, we let go of, it's all about what God is going to do through us when we want him to do it. So, I mean, I'd love to talk to you more about that, but I think they're about ready to wind us down. Any other, you had a statement earlier, I'm sorry, Deb.
I was just going to say to her question, that goes back to a stigma of a drug addict again getting Narcan and a diabetic getting insulin. But that's been in the medical field for years. I might not get the treatment that Jim gets because of my insurance. The unfairity, you can't go that route with unfairities in healthcare because it doesn't matter if you're a drug addict, or diabetic, or a heart. You know, what if you're on a heart transplant list? You know, it's just not.
Right. And the same, you know,
I hear that a lot.
yeah, you mentioned the word cancer. Some of you may even be survivors. It didn't work for me. I lost my former life. It didn't work for me. And I was actually told by some individuals, if you had more faith, God wouldn't have let it go. I mean, you know, what do you do with that other than say, I'll pray for you because at this moment you have a good heart, but you're clueless. And that's a good phrase for many outs if you want one. You've got a good heart, but you're clueless right now. I think that's somewhere in the Bible. I'm not sure. Brother?
I don't know about you guys, but something special happened here today. Amen. If you'd like to be a part of these from here on out, please pull one of us aside. Something special happened here today. What's going to happen from here? I don't know. This is up to the God we serve. I can't thank you folks enough, all of you. Our speakers, still here helping us out. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're going to close. We're going to close with a word of prayer. I invite you to stand. Brother, would you come on up here and send us out with a word of prayer? If you would be so kind.
Sure.
Let's bow our heads and commit the rest of this day to Him, brother.
God, as we close our time together this afternoon, and Lord, I just thank you for the privilege every day to be able just to open our hearts and our minds. And God, you allow them, the blinders off, the heart is open, the minds are cleared, that we can see the needs and that we can see the hurts. And God, we all have a story. We all have a journey to walk. And within that story, we got assurance to know that by your mercy we're not consumed, and it is fresh every morning. God, what a joy to know that we have a tomorrow that has full of hope. Father, I pray for the churches represented here today who will be in service tomorrow, That God, that we realize that you are so much bigger than an address. You are so much greater than the struggles and the problems that we have. But God, first and foremost, we want to just thank you for the precious gift of your Son, because that truly is what makes everything possible today. We give you the glory, we give you the praise for the results of this meeting. Father, where it goes, we pray that you will be glorified in every aspect. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We serve a risen Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for coming. God bless.